We're going live on YouTube, Mr. Chairman. And then we are recording. No.
Thank you. And we'll call this meeting to order. It's October 13th, 2021, about 6:02. Our next meeting will be October 27th. We'll also have a special meeting on October 25th to discuss the warrants. This is a hybrid meeting, which means that it's also Zoom as well as in person. The members of the Board of Selectmen are in person. I will just ask them to identify themselves. Selectmen? Dr. Z. And Ken Pacheco, the chairman, is also present. This is being recorded. It is going to be, it should be on Channel 9 as we speak, and it's also on YouTube. I would ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Since last meeting,
Please remain standing, please.
since the last meeting, the following Dayton residents have passed. Our condolences go out to their families. Tori Andrews, 35 years of age, graduated from the class of 2004 from Dayton, Rehoboth. Dorothy Estes, 92 of Dayton, was a longtime Dayton resident. And Ralph Potter, 75 of North Dayton, and a retired member of the Taunton Municipal Lighting Plan. Our condolences to their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have a proclamation. This is from the Board of Selectmen. Whereas October 2021 marks 36 years that National Breast Cancer Awareness Month has educated women about early breast cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment. And whereas 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer within their lifetime. And whereas nearly 42,000 women die from breast cancer each year in the United States. And whereas in 2021, more than 281,550 new cases of breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed. And whereas increased breast cancer screening increases early detection, reduces death, increases life expectancy, decreases late-stage cancer diagnosis, and increases 5-year survival rates. And whereas, as we display pink ribbons and wear pink clothing to raise awareness, we also recognize more than 3.8 million breast cancer survivors, those currently battling the disease, and their families and friends who are a tireless source of love and encouragement. We commend the efforts of our medical professionals and researchers working to find a cure for this deadly disease. And whereas we honor the lives of those who have lost their fight against breast cancer, standing with those who remember their loved ones. Therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, on the 15th day of October 2021, recognize the month of October 2021 to be Breast Awareness, Cancer Awareness Month, and urge all the citizens of the Town of Dayton to take cognizance of this event and participate critically in the observance. And signed by the Chairman, Ken Pacheco, Lenny Ho, who's the clerk, and Register Office, who is a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation as presented this evening.
Second. Discussion. Just want to add that we've all been in touch, I'm sure, family members and friends who suffered with breast cancer and some who have passed away. So our thoughts are with all those families and friends who have had to experience this terrible disease. I'll ask for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? I think Ken Pacheco is also an aye. Schedule appointments recognition. This is for the Terry family. We have a certificate of recognition. We, the undersigned, hereby recognize Janice and Charles Terry, to whom we extend our sincere appreciation for your extremely generous donation to the Dayton Local Regional School District in honor of your daughter Lisa, as well as the many years of tireless support you have given to the Town of Dayton schools. A witness whereof we have hereunto set our name across the great seal of the Town of Dayton to be affixed on this 13th day of October 2021 The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, signed by Chairman Ken Pacheco, Leonard Poe, who is our clerk, and Dr. Z. Office, who is a member. I just want to thank you for speaking with our community, with our community, for a great donation, generous donation that you made. And I know your daughter suffered from some difficulties, and I know Mrs. Terry, you've been a big advocate for the school committee and for those special needs students, and in particular, a family member of mine benefited from the hard work that you have done. So I can't say enough for what you have done in your donation and what you've done in your whole life is supporting this very important issue. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just wanted to add, the reason why I asked for this to be on the agenda was not just for the donation. I know that serving on the school committee probably sometimes feels like a thankless job for you, Mrs. Terry. But I wanted to know that I also was someone that benefited from your work. Specifically, you were an advocate and a strong force behind rebuilding the middle school back in the 90s. I was one of the first classes to go through all 4 years and graduate from the middle school and go on to the high school. So I also wanted to thank you for everything that you have done as a family and that you have done specifically as a school committee member. So thank you.
The source of this money actually is our daughter Lisa's 401k, which she got working at Bristol County Savings Bank. She had to sort and deliver mail, and she'd be very happy to know that we donated this money to people with special needs. They taught her how to read. She really got her at a job of reading, sorting, delivering mail for 20 years or more at Bristol County Savings Bank. She'd be very happy to know this is where the money was going.
I had the awesome privilege of serving on the school committee with Janice. And she has touched this community in so many ways. She was also a very big part in the addition that was placed on the elementary school. But let us not forget the contributions made by Charlie Terry as a former member of the Board of Selectmen here in this town. Terry family has played a major role in this community for many, many years. And I want to thank you for your sacrifice and for all you've done for the town.
Thank you very much.
Entertain a motion to accept this gift of recognition.
So moved with thanks and appreciation.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Ken Pacheco is an aye. Want to give you a copy? Want to give you these?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Lisa was such a joy to our family, and she and I spent a lot of time talking, telling crazy stories, and she thought her dad was just the greatest thing that ever happened, and he was number one. I shared this story because I think it's so funny. She would always say, "Dad's number one," so I said to her one day, "Well, what am I?" "Well, how old are you?" That's what at that time, I probably was in my 40s or 50s, but that's where I came on her line of people. Dad was definitely number one, and she was number one in our lives. She just, such a pleasure, such a joy, and brought so much joy to the people that she worked with, family. She had 3 older brothers that she thought were pretty terrific, and they looked after her, and she was their little sister. So she's so missed. We have a private cemetery, so she's buried right on our land, which we go and visit her a couple times a day, and I can still tell her stories about her dad and how he's behaving or not behaving. But she used to get after him a lot about things too. So he was battling 2 women in his life, but now it's the one that's working with 2. I'll represent Lisa. and dealing with the dad, so, but we're happy. We'll continue doing it as long as we can. We're both in our 80s, so we don't know whether we've got another 20 years, maybe, we'll see. And school committee, over 30 years. A lot has changed, but it's still, I still enjoy if I get up and have to go to a meeting. And if I start complaining about it, then it's the time to get out. So far, I keep going, so, but time might be running out on that too. We'll see. Thank you all so very much, and thank you for the time.
Very much.
I did 9 years of that stuff.
Any advice? Get out while you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's why we're.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I gotta go home and watch what's going on. I have a few phone numbers I can call.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
The next agenda item on the schedule of appointment recognitions is Community Electricity Aggregation Program. Mr. John Bullock is here. You want to go to the microphone?
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, for allowing me to come before you tonight to give you an update on the community electricity aggregation. As you may remember, the planning for this community electricity aggregation started back in 2014. As a matter of fact, it was January 2014 when Ross Perry, who was then the Director of Municipal Services for the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, known as SERPED, decided that a community electricity aggregation for the towns served by SERPED would be a good thing to do. So essentially, the planning got underway. It took a while to get things through the Department of Public Utilities. And again, this started with 18 communities here in mostly Bristol County, the SERPED region. Since then, it has added 7 communities, not all in this area, they're from other areas. So we've got 25 communities in this aggregation. It has become the largest aggregation of its kind, not only in Massachusetts, but in the country. So it's really an important community activity, an important function that all the towns who are participating in got together and did. I have a short presentation. That first slide goes over enrollments. Essentially, there's a graph there, but since this started in January 2016, that's a little small to read. So I just took out some of the highlights. In January 2016, at the launch, there were 1,887 households or accounts involved. Essentially, Dayton has about 2,800 households. So that's a pretty good percentage coming into the aggregation to start. In August of 2021, in our most recent month that we have numbers on, there were 1,998 participating accounts. So again, this is a good number. The maximum in the aggregation for just Dayton, as of July 2019, was about 2,103. And the minimum as of December 2017 was 1,834. And you're always going to get a certain amount of fluctuation in these numbers, all right? You might notice on the chart, there are a couple of blips where the numbers go up. What happens with National Grid and certainly with Eversource that we deal with, we get new accounts from them every 4 to 5 months, and we send out letters to those new accounts if they want to join the aggregation. So that's what those blips are in that graph. On that next slide, it shows you the accumulated savings. And again, whenever we mention the word savings, the Department of Public Utilities wants us to put in a disclaimer that savings are not guaranteed, although again, this aggregation has been very successful historically. And you can see that graph, the current savings for Dayton, 838,000. It's a very good number. I'm going to come back to this graph after I go through a couple more of these slides. But on that next rate comparison chart, you'll see that the National Grid rates, which are adjusted every 6 months, are on the blue line. And the orange line is the rate for the aggregation. So you can tell out of the 12 adjustment periods since January of 2016, we have beaten the rate for National Grid in 9 of those. So we're doing very well in terms of providing the residents with benefits. And again, benefits is sort of a savings value, so I have to say that future savings are not guaranteed. You'll notice that on all of our slide presentations now at the bottom, we have that disclaimer that says savings cannot be guaranteed because future National Grid basic service rates are unknown. You'll notice that at the end of this, the right side of this chart, is the latest adjustment from National Grid that was announced in the middle of September. Their rate is going to 14,821 per kilowatt hour. And you can see that comparison on that next page, that rate comparison. We were thinking that this would be a high rate on this adjustment, but we weren't expecting 14,822. As you might be aware, since about April, there has been a natural gas spike in prices. Natural gas has almost doubled since then. Natural gas is a precursor for electricity rates, so that's why, probably most of the reason why this is so high. And you can see the rates for the aggregation, the standard rate, which is again the rate that everybody was put into automatically, is that 1047 rate. Okay, so there's quite a difference between that standard rate and the National Grid rate. In this last renewal, many of the SERPED towns opted to have 2 optional products, and essentially there's a green 50% and it's a green 100%. Which means that your the mix of your fuel has 50% more green energy in it, and you can see that that rate is 12,244. And again, this is for anyone who wants to have more renewable electricity within their fuel mix. And as you can see, that green 100 rate for this adjustment period is still below that National Grid rate. On that last slide, the enrollment trends, both in Dayton and the rest of the SERPED communities, have been in a very tight range, which indicates a very good acceptance by the residents and businesses of the aggregation. And we're very pleased with the way this has established itself over the last 6 years. Again, cumulative savings, we expect to continue to show a favorable trend, although future savings are not guaranteed. If we just go back to that savings chart, you're going to see the next time that we update, you're going to see a huge jump in this cumulative savings number because of that next period. Any questions?
I have a couple. Dr. Z.
So my first question is regarding enrollment. You had said that the trends remain stable. How does someone enroll?
There's a website that people can go to. You can see that on your copy, there's a copy of that website. It's masscea.com/Titan. And essentially, that site has an enrollment form that people can fill out, and usually they're able to be switched over on their next meter read.
Related to that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So this is obviously a significant hike, or I shouldn't say hike, excuse me. There's a significant difference in 2022 versus what a rate, if you're not part of the aggregation program, for NACRID would be versus being part of the aggregation program. So I guess my question is, when does a resident have to enroll in the aggregation program by to get that good rate?
Well, the rates for the aggregation are fixed. They're the same rates fixed through the meter read December 2023. So it's not a special rate. There's no time limit on that rate.
Okay.
They can come into the program anytime.
Thank you. And just a note for our team, if we could put that information on our website,
Yes.
so people can decide if they want to enroll. My last, I had a last question, but I didn't write it out, so.
So there's been, I've received mailings as well as phone calls trying to get us to sign up for something else. Has that been happening to us? We haven't fallen for it, but some people may have fallen. So what happens if somebody falls for that? They out of this, they can't get back in? Is that my understanding?
They can get back in.
It's very important that people pay attention to what they pursue.
Right. Unfortunately, there are a lot of companies that will call you or will send you something in the mail. You have to be very careful about those offers. Some of them are legitimate, some of them are not. And some of them carry a very high early termination fee with them. It's usually not explained at the time, but people find that out later. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies prey on older residents. And the standard tact that they use, they have somebody with a very pleasing voice call up and say, wow, we think you can qualify for this discounted price. All we need to know is your account number to check to see if you qualify. Well, you never give out your account number to somebody who calls you up on the phone, because you can get switched because they have your account number and you're not going to know it until you get bills that are a lot more than they should be. Okay, so you never give out your account number on the phone to anybody who calls up, because again, once they get your account number, they're not going to call you back because they have what they need. Okay, so that's the biggest ploy they use, and it's something that residents, unfortunately, again, when confronted by somebody with a very pleasant voice that's going to help them to get a lower rate, some people fall for that. But essentially, our aggregations, if people get out, they can come back in. We have no restrictions on that at all. Okay. And certainly, if you find anyone who is on a rate that they shouldn't be on, you have my card, they can call my cell phone, I will help them with that.
Yesterday, we got a phone call saying that we were overcharged electric bill, hit 1, which I didn't do, but I'm sure that at that point they would have asked for my account number, which is amazing, but they overcharged me, they should have my account number.
Yes. Yeah, well, you know, sometimes they say, oh, we just want to verify that we have the right information. You know, again, that's another way.
Is there anything else, Selectman?
In regards to the mechanism that you would provide a roll rate, is it just the sheer number of communities and homes that are bought in?
Well, certainly that's part of it. You know, obviously, the larger the aggregation, the better rate we can get. The biggest part of that is the fact that good energy is not only in the aggregation business, but we're also in a large commercial industrial business. So we have our analysts are in the market every day, okay? For instance, in this last renewal, we went out to bid for the renewal 9 months ahead of the date that it would switch over, because our analysts said to us, hey, this is a good time to go out. Now, we have a big advantage because the utilities can only go out at very specific times of the year, 2 times of the year, at a very specific time, whether the market is good or not. Okay, so we have the advantage that we can do this when the market's good. The utilities, and obviously this time, National Grid did not do well with their bid, okay, because of the way the natural gas market was spiking.
Following up on that, you're making a presentation to the residents. Do you have a commercial division that actually consults incoming or potential businesses that may want to come into Dayton that will need to buy power?
Most of your larger businesses already have, they've chosen a third-party supplier. It's usually the smaller businesses that haven't, and I'm sure there are many of those in Dayton who are on the aggregation. But normally, I guess it's between 90 and 95% of your larger businesses have already gotten a bid from larger support from suppliers, okay? We would certainly, if a business came to us and said, hey, could you bid this for us, we would do that. But we don't go after that business because that's usually the venue of other brokers.
Any other questions?
I do, sorry. So my final question is, if I understand the maximum enrollment number to mean that that's the maximum number of people that the program would allow in, why is there a maximum number?
No, I'm just saying that's the maximum that are enrolled in the program.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
So,
I'm just giving you the range
Okay.
of.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So all households theoretically could be part of it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Any residents or businesses within the geographical boundaries of Dayton can be in this program.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, I want to thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you again. It's great to see you in person. Again, finally. Good to see you, Michael. Good to see you, Karen. Again, finally. Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Mr. O'Rourke.
Public input. Anybody wishing to speak?
Mr. Chairman, board members, good evening. My name is Ray Hay. I'm the Veteran Service Officer for the town of Dayton. I appear before you this evening to speak about a veteran breakfast we're planning to have on November 6th at Father's House Family Church located at 207 Main Street in Dayton between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to join us. And we are sending out invitations to all veterans that are residents of Dayton and asking them to RSVP so we can get a count on what we plan on doing that day. The Veterans Day is really to thank our veterans and our living veterans and tell stories about what we did as veterans, and we hope to have a good turnout. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, hope to see you there.
And family members are also.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
I've seen people on there in the past.
Yes.
yeah, I went to one breakfast here in Dayton, and there were family members that went. So we can accommodate that. So when they notify us and just tell us who's coming, hopefully we'll have enough food. We'll make sure we do.
We have about, what, 425 roughly?
I think the count as of today was 416, so you're close. 416, and yeah, it probably stays around that average. I have had an opportunity to look at some of the past history of veterans in Dayton, and it's pretty impressive of the different services they served in and things that they've done. So it'd be nice to thank them and see them come down.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for your this practice.
Who is providing the, is it Alice's?
Yes, yeah, Alice will be providing. I spoke to them today. He's like everybody else. He has a lot of trouble with, staff and everything, but he said he would be glad to accommodate it for us, so we'll get the job done. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other public input? Can you give us your name and address?
I'm Bill Moore, 1835 Smith Street. And I'd like to talk about the special speed zone that's being proposed. What I want to talk about is, this speed limit change here. How we're going to determine what is the correct speed limit. And what I think is that determining the speed limit is very subjective. We all have our beliefs as to what we think the speed limit should be. I think it's 30, you think it's 40, you think it's 15, whatever. It's very subjective. But what I want us to talk about is that the Massachusetts Department of Transportation has a detailed process that takes the subjective out of it and makes it objective. They have a 21-page document, you can freely get it off of their website, that clearly defines a process on how you determine the speed limit on any given area. And what this system is predicated upon is the idea that we all drive at a safe and reasonable speed, that we believe. I don't believe that anybody purposely goes driving down the road at a speed they feel that's going to cause an accident or be unsafe. We all drive at a speed that we personally believe is the correct speed. So what happens then is they've developed this into a process where in order to set a speed limit, what you do is you observe what's going on in that particular area where you want to impose a speed limit, and you say take measurements of how fast everybody's driving. So you say 100 cars go by, and I'm compressing 21 pages down to a paragraph here. They basically say the 85th percentile. So basically 85 out of 100 people that drove by, how fast were they going? That's what is considered a reasonable and proper speed limit. And that is the proper way to set a speed limit on any street within the town. Now, I believe Mallory had spoken about this before and said that that is the correct way to set the speed limit in these areas. And that if we had done a process such as this, it would not be appreciated, it would not be liked, because in all likelihood, the speed limit would go up, not down. Now, we're imposing this special speed zone. What is the purpose of this special speed zone? The purpose of this is supposed to be for some sort of extraordinary hazard. Something like around the corner, there's a cliff. Around the corner, there's a playground or something like that. Something that the average driver driving down the street, there's some sort of hazard that they're unaware of. So this is why we're supposed to create a special speed zone. What it is not is a loophole. It's not a loophole that says, I'm going to arbitrarily, I don't like the way the speed limit is, so I'm just going to set it to 20 miles per hour. That's not what this is designed for. And to use it as such is an abuse of this exception. a blatant abuse. This is not what this is for. And this is also, I also say this is not what people want. When I've seen I've watched on television, the vast majority of people say 20 miles an hour, that's too low. That's ridiculous. So well, why can't it be 30 miles? Why can't it be 35? And as I said when I opened, everybody has their own opinion. But I can tell you this, universally, everyone thinks that 20 miles an hour is ridiculous. And someone was challenged, I believe you have been challenged to try to drive down that street at 20 miles an hour. Drive down any street at 20 miles an hour. It's practically like walking. It's just inappropriate speed. You know, unless you're driving in front of a school or some other major hazard, it's not an appropriate speed for a residential. So with that, I would just like to ask this board to please reconsider putting this issue before the town. Thank you.
Anybody else? Please identify yourself, I know who you are.
Tony Roberts, County Street Bank. I'd like to know if the board has any more input on the water moratorium that's imposed on the Senate.
Can you speak on that?
Yes, the liaison to the water district. Mr. Roderick, I think that your question for the water superintendent. And because of the need for upgrades at the plant, for the need to add additional wells, and because the demand is greater than the supply, the moratorium will continue. He did inform me that they are negotiating a purchase for an additional well. At that time, they will then consider removing the moratorium. But at this time, things are very fragile. Fortunately, they plan on continuing the moratorium.
We're into the 15th month of this moratorium, and I don't think any progress has been made. Moratorium for 2 years. Are they gonna extend it?
I will say this straight up.
Yeah, so
I do not oversee that. The voters in the water district do. They are accountable to the voters in the district. If the voters are not satisfied with the progress that is going, they can take matters into their own hand come election day. Currently, that's where it stands. That's the reality of it. They're in a position to make a decision. They have. If you see a well come into existence or purchase, then you know that there's a good chance things are going to change and the moratorium will be lifted. Other than that, the only other way to make change, if voters feel the moratorium has lasted long enough, is to do it that way.
they have the option to buy one. Why aren't they buying it?
Somebody, do you know when the next meeting for the water district is? If these
Yes.
questions really should be directed.
Thursday,
This is coming Thursday?
Yes.
And what time is
at
that?
6 o'clock, at the water district,
Okay?
6 o'clock. I will be able to attend, I have a meeting.
Sure. I assume they have public input also.
Yes, they do.
Okay, I'll probably see you there. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts,
Mr. Robert?
is your concern that we're gonna hit month 24 and they're gonna need to continue the moratorium?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other public input? Is there anybody in Zoom for public input? Selectmen Roberts, will you read the announcements, please?
Yes, please. All right, give me one. The Town of Dayton Food Bank distribution will be held next on Saturday, October 16th, 2021 at Town Hall, lower level, 979 Somerset Avenue.
It's at 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. At 8 a.m. There will be a volunteer day for the community garden on Saturday, October 16th, 2021 at the James Briggs Community Garden at 949 Somerset Avenue.
That's at 9 a.m.
That's at 9 a.m. Yeah, oh, the time's not on there. Thank you. That will be at 9 a.m. on Saturday, the volunteer day. The Dayton Police Department, in coordination with the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, is hosting a prescription drug take-back initiative event on Saturday, October 23rd, 2021 at,
I think that, actually, we have something here. Let me, I'm not sure if we did the hours, but. And I do know that, they did say that you can't bring marijuana as one of the drugs to give to them. But any other drug, no. I don't see a time, I think.
it might just be all day.
It might be all day. They've dedicated their day to about their old and youth medication.
A meeting is set to review the special town meeting warrant articles on October 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. at Old Town Hall, so here, 1111 Somerset Ave. Public is welcome and encouraged to attend, and so what that is the articles will be explained in advance of the meeting.
So tonight we're going to be voting on our recommendations for the warrant articles. We won't necessarily be getting input. We will have specific warrant articles that impact someone has presented. For example, Mr. Woods has presented one. He will get to speak on it tonight. But this particular night is when people are going to have that opportunity to speak on the warrants or against whatever. But that's not happening.
Thank you. A veterans breakfast, as our veterans agent, Mr. Hayes had said, is scheduled for 9 a.m. on Saturday, November 6, 2021 at Father's House Family Church, 207 Main Street, Dayton, Massachusetts. And then, do you mind reading the list of boards?
Sure. So I'm going to read the list of board and committee vacancies. Cable television committee, we need one. Capital Outlay committee needs one. Cemetery commission needs one. Commission on disability needs 3 members. Development and industrial committee needs 2.
Actually, the action this evening will be full.
Okay, so scratch that. Finance committee needs 2 members. Human rights committee needs 3 members. Land use committee needs 2 members. Open space committee needs 3 members. We need a superintendent of pest control. And the TIP review board needs 2 members. And the zoning board of appeals needs 3 members. So they're down to the minimum, I guess, 3 members. Town administrator's report.
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few updates that I just actually want to present this evening. Excuse me, I have new glasses and they actually interfere with my mask. First, I think on Wednesday, October 6th, we had a department head meeting that I just wanted to provide a few updates to the board and to the public. The town accountant has reestablished the process of distributing on a monthly basis year-to-date expenditure reports for all departments, boards, and committees. This is extremely important, so we always know our fiscal position and exactly where we're trending and so forth. We discussed the November 18th, 2021 deadline for all capital request forms from departments, boards, and committees, which will help us outline our priorities for the next 5 years in terms of what our capital plans are and how we're going to fund this and how we're going to fund those plans. And these plans also includes, and we reached out to the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District as well. And I've asked for their priorities and input as well, and that's extremely important too. We also discussed the closeout of fiscal year 2021, and as part of that process, the town accountant, I really want to thank her for her diligence. She submitted our free cash request to the Department of Revenue yesterday afternoon. So hopefully, knock on wood, we've been in touch with the Department of Revenue on our special town meeting timeline. But I think we'll hopefully be in a really good position for that at this point. And we'll follow up with them and keep the board and the FinCom updated as we go forward with that. We also discussed as we go forward in the fiscal year. Been planning, in a few months for the closeout of FY '22. We are gonna be rolling out actually new processes for encumbrances, really to tighten up our financial controls and processes, so we have a better process with all that going forward. So I wanted to provide those updates from the department head meeting, and then I can move on to grants. But if there's any question on the department head meeting at all? Okay. In terms of an update on our grants, and I know Dr. Z is gonna present additional information on the grant, the $150,000 grant application we submitted last week to the Mass Office of Disability for a variety of accessibility projects outlined in the packet. But yeah, for the last really 2 months, 3 months actually, it was a labor of love between Dr. Z, between Parks and Commission Chairman Kevin Smith, Jonathan Gale, ADA Coordinator, Highway Superintendent Ferry, and Building Commissioner Aguilar. In the level of detail that we were able to provide in our application and outlining our need, I think was extremely impressive and a really good presentation that I know Dr. Z will actually outline further. But we do also this week, we have an IT grant deadline on Friday with the state to submit our IT grant. And we'll be working on that. I'll be working on that and finalizing that application tomorrow. We received notification last week that we did not receive the one-stop grant portal application that we applied for in early June through the state's one-stop portal process. That grant application would have actually funded our zoning analysis of Route 138 and Route 44. So we'll be evaluating our options and where to go and what other grants are out there to pursue that. We have an upcoming Development and Industrial Commission meeting on Monday night. I can shortly thereafter, after input from that committee, we should be in line to submit our community contract best practices on that. The $118,000 shared streets accessibility project, the work will begin on that in the second week of November. We'll complete all of our grant-funded projects by the end of December, and then our local projects will continue on in the spring. So that is really good news, and those are the improvements on Lincoln Ave. We have improvements on Main Street. There's improvements up by Bristol Ivy as well. There's a number of them in the community, which we're really excited about. And also the Briggs Street to Culvert replacement project is also wrapping up. We believe actually next week they'll be doing the paving, and the installing of the guardrails on the culvert project there. So that time should really be wrapping up that project as well. I just wanted to bring everyone to speed on. Is there any question on any of the grants?
Yes, Dr. Z.
Yes, my question is, you had said that we were, after your Development and Industrial Commission,
Yes.
we would be ready to submit. So who is writing the narratives, and are they written?
Yes, so we have worked with UMass Boston on writing the narratives for the financial forecast best practice, and then I'm going to present a proposed draft to the industrial. Oh my God, I always get the name wrong. The Development and Industrial Commission on Monday night for their input and approval as well.
I'm sorry, so who wrote the other one? Not the financial forecasting, the one for the plan, the economic plan.
Yeah, so I'm gonna write that and present it for feedback to the oh my God, I did it again. The Development and Industrial Commission on Monday night.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I just, I just would like to add that at that meeting on Monday night, there will be representatives of Serpent and the Taunton Area Chamber of Commerce. And their input, we deeply appreciate it, and I'm sure very helpful.
Thank you. And who is our Serpent liaison specifically for economic?
This project, I have been talking and working with Grant King.
Oh, yes.
And then Elizabeth Gonzalez, I believe.
Okay.
Is her name, and and I think she will be our liaison, for the economic development plan project.
Thank you.
So, and finally, I wanted to provide an update on ARPA funding, and the ARPA funding that is coming through the federal government, actually from the federal government to the town, and from the federal government through Bristol County also to the town. For the local dedicated funding, our allotment is a total of $832,000, and there's very fairly limited uses, which I included all the Bristol County information in the packet as well. So in addition to the $832,000, of which we already have, and received at the end of June, half of that, so a total of $416,000 we have now. We expect an additional approximately $1.5 million to come to Dayton by way of Bristol County. And we're expecting in the next month or so, really, the county rolling out its plan. And from what I understand, they're going to be opening up a portal where we identify our priorities, and where we plan and apply for projects as well for funding. So, at this point, in terms of our local funding, which is the $832,000, but also our ARPA funding of $1.5 million that's coming through the county. It's important at this point, especially with the work of the capital outlay committee happening as well, to be actually thinking and planning and identifying any projects that could fit within the restrictions of the ARPA funding requirements. So as I mentioned, in some cases, the capital request process will be helpful. We also know, for example, from the warrant articles that have been submitted for special town meeting, that we need actually updated public safety repeaters and radios in one area of town as well. We're already looking at the possibility of ARPA funding for that. We also have major infrastructure needs as well in terms of water and sewer that we have the ability to fund from that funding as well. Again, I expect, especially as the county rolls out its plan over the next 6 weeks, I think a lot of this is going to get going in full swing, but I just wanted to give the board an update where things were now.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you.
Sorry. It's specifically, it's related to the ARPA funding.
Yes.
When you said limited uses, you had said it specifically in regards to the 832,000, of which we already have 416.
Yes, we do.
So what, is it only water and sewer improvements? What could it be used for? And then I guess my second question, and you can answer however you like, is, are the other remaining 1.5 million in funding, are there limited uses for that as well?
All the funding has the same exact funding requirements. So we have the same funding requirements and the same guidelines for all of our approximately $2.3 million that we'll be receiving, either through local funds or by way of the county as well. And I want to, and I'm trying to, as we're talking, just quickly bring up the Bristol County information. I'm trying to scroll quickly here, I apologize. Okay, so like you'll see, like in this, like in a lot of this information is what we discussed with Rep. Haddad, actually, in our meeting last week. However, the funding guidelines, if you will, they're outlined beginning right here. So they fund public health issues, public health needs. That is, I believe, one of 4 or 5 categories. And within public health, you can see the types of things that we could fund with that, whether it's PPE, there's capital investments for public facilities that respond to COVID, which is actually what we're looking at for our public safety upgrades that I mentioned. Then it includes actually funding available to deal with the negative economic impacts of COVID. So you can see there are eligible uses for food assistance programs, for rent and mortgage, for unemployment benefits, aid to nonprofit organizations and the like. Then we have the then there's aid to disproportionately impacted communities, which center on education, healthy childhood environments, housing support, social determinants of health. Then there's a category for premium pay for employees, for public sector employees, and then for private sector employees. Then there's a category for infrastructure, especially for water, stormwater, for sewage, for water conservation, energy compensation, and at the end, broadband. Then there is a revenue replacement category, which is actually pretty complicated. And there are a multitude of guidelines that you need to meet to fund your budget, or to deal with any revenue impacts. And thankfully, we really haven't had any as a town. So that's really relevant to us. And then then there are administrative expenses as well. So like broadly, those are the categories. We have some flexibility, but we have to live within the parameters of what have been outlined by the federal government. And as I mentioned, the same guidelines that the county is using are the same guidelines that apply to $832,000 in local funding as well.
I've had some discussions with Mr. Mullen in regards to this. There's only so much funding. As you can see, there are a great number of categories, and the town of Dayton has a great number of needs. And I know we can't vote on it this evening, but what I would really like to see is a policy and a procedure established about grant applications to Mr. Mullen's office. One, how that will be done, deadlines and the like. Two, what groups will evaluate those requests. And I would hope that one group that is an evaluator that helps us set priorities is the capital outlay committee. That's going to be so important. Obviously, at some point along the line, the Board of Selectmen are going to be giving their approval, but I would like to see a format so that all the applicants know this is the process. These are the people that are making decisions. Will it be capital outlay that'll make the final decision and we'll put a rubber stamp on it, or will we give our blessing straight up irregardless of what other groups say, which I find kind of risky. But there will be a definite process. One of the things that I am well aware of over the years is that we've had some resentment because people felt that we were pitting one department against another. That's why this whole idea of the capital outlay, establishing priorities, establishing timelines, I see it as wonderful. Everybody will see it straight up, know ahead of time what's coming and why. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, go to old business, recommendations for warrant articles. Just so that everybody knows that the finance committee did review all the money articles. And although we may see recommendations from the finance committee, it's conditional on the fact that we'll see how much we get free cash. So they don't want to make a commitment necessarily. We want to read again, I believe it's on the 28th. Again, to see what the free cash is and take a vote again. So whatever you see, the recommendations is conditional on seeing how much free cash.
40? Sorry, sorry.
So, let's begin. Article 1, 2. And right now, it's going to be the recommendation for the board of selectmen. Article 1, to give reports to the town committee and active on. So we don't need to make a recommendation on that one. So we're all in favor of that. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds $80.92 to pay the prior year's bill. Prior year bills for the Mass Rhode Island Veterinary Inc. Department is the animal control officer, and the funding source is and the amount of the funding source of $8.90 is to raise and appropriate. Finance committee recommends that we raise and appropriate. Any discussion on that? More help?
No.
If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds $80.93 to pay a prior year.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye, supplemental.
Aye.
Not to see? Aye. Can't be equals aye. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $379,675 to make the payment of the bond of the police station to reduce the tax rate or take any other action relative thereto. The finance committee recommends transfer from free cash. We have, since I've been on the board, and I don't know if that was the first day when I was on the board, we've always paid this, made this payment out of free cash. So it doesn't impact the taxes.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends transfer for free cash for this article.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, ask for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Candy Chief votes aye. Article 4, just so you know, I'm not reading all the articles. We're gonna share this.
Please
No,
don't.
no, I'm not reading all of it. I'm not gonna go through all.
Oh, yeah, no.
So we're gonna share the responsibility.
Oh.
Like we did,
Yes,
okay.
especially the long articles. The 2 and 3 page articles, you guys.
Yeah, nothing to speak of.
Yes.
I get to read the minutes, the ones.
That's fine.
Article 4, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate annual transfer from available funds the sum of $34,543.82 to fund the fiscal year 2022 personal expenses for the employee covered under the recently settled Light Police Officers Local 306 Massachusetts Coalition of Police bargaining agreement, or take any action relative thereto. Because it's regarding wages or salary has to be raised and appropriate, not free cash, and the finance committee recommends that we do this.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we recommend to raise and appropriate the sum as listed in Article 4 this evening.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Sneak? Aye. And Candy Chief votes aye. I'll read, this is what I'll read, following one article, and if you wish to speak on it, you can, because this is something that you would have petition on this, okay? Warrant article number 5, see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws to add the following new article, flag bylaw. No person shall fly or display a commemorative or organizational flag other than A, the United States flag, B, the Massachusetts state flag, C, the official town of Dayton flag, D, the official flags of all branches of the U.S. military and armed forces, and or E, the POW MIA flag in a town flagpole or any other such manner located at the town hall or town-owned land or town-maintained facilities. Article 5, to amend the general bylaws was submitted to the residential petition. You want to come through the
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank the 216 residents that signed a petition to move this forward. I think it's very important that they all show up on November 1st and vote yes on Article 5. Thank you very much.
And you can also, if you wish to discuss it, be here on October 25th. We have the public hearing, so anybody wants to speak on that also can speak on it.
Thank you very much.
I'll entertain a motion.
So I don't think the board recommends or makes recommendations on articles that were petitioned, at least they haven't since I've been here.
Yeah, I think since I've been here, this is the first time I've seen an article that's petition. So
I think it's something that started from the residents and should be decided by them.
well, it's going to be decided.
Yep.
Obviously. We won't take a vote then on Article 5. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the amount of $11,142.81 to additionally fund account number 010-010-510-0000-50-5106, personal expenses, salary, health agent, due to the proposed increase in wages from $37.04 an hour to $38.86 an hour, and increase in work hours from 28 to 35 hours for the remaining fiscal year 2022, and take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Chairman of the Board of Health, will you wish to speak on this?
Well, I
Before we take a vote?
I don't think there's a whole lot more I can say about the need for additional hours in the health department. If you happen to be over there and see what's going on during the day, the volume of work speaks for itself about the need for additional hours. But just as an example, have a study we did within Bristol County for both hours and wages. Now, of the about 9 here, it looks like that we did, all of the communities, and I'll read them off: Dayton, Freetown, Acushnet, Beholden, Rainham, Seafox, Swansea, Somerset. They all have a 35-hour health agent. I guess they get the need for a number of hours in each one. And I also have the one that Rockland did, I think that all the board received. On this one, there are 44 cities and towns. Some are well over 20,000, several are under 10,000, as is the town of Dayton. Of the 44 cities and towns, 39 of them work 35 hours or more. And if you have your sheet, you'll see that. So I don't think there's a lot more I can say about the number of hours. I see what goes on there daily for the most part. I'm there almost every day. Is it a little busy now due to COVID? Certainly, but I don't see us progressing even without COVID for 28 hours. As far as wages go, the average wage in FY22 on this report from Rockland was $84,433. This is the going rate for health agents these days. If you do any investigating, you find that health agents are leaving positions and going to other places, and they're pulling anywhere between $75,000 and $100,000. So that's that one. We did the one I mentioned before for Bristol County. The wage for our health agent is the second lowest within those numbers in Bristol County. And it will be the second lowest after an increase. So, you know, I would hate to see the town have to spend more money than it needs to spend because we let a good health agent go. Especially with the skills that he has, I believe there's a lot of potential savings in the town going forward. Hopefully, we'll finally get a contract done with job descriptions and duties. And I think that would be helpful for the agent and helpful for the town, so we can identify exactly what we're doing. Did a little, I'm not an accountant, but I think I got it right as far as the increase in wages. Right now, it's $54,189. That's without stipends. The new price will be $71,065 and change. That's an increase of $16,875. Of that $16,875, $14,213, if I figured it right, is due to an increase in hours at the new rate, 78.86. $2,662 would be the increase in wages at the new rate and the new number of hours. So the majority of the increase we're looking at is geared toward increasing hours and not wages. I think yes, sir.
I just wanted to clarify, so the numbers don't match up, so for people watching that don't understand where that 16,000 number came from, that's for a full fiscal year. The article here.
Correct, that's the increase for
So
This
there was
for 8
some
months.
confusion.
Yeah, this is for 8
I
months.
just wanted people to understand. Figures that. I was confused too, and then I did some quick math.
I have a longer version of the presentation, I haven't quite completed yet, that will outline the duties and responsibilities when we separated from the Board of Selectmen, and what's happened with our staffing, and what's happened with our workload that was taken from the Board of Selectmen. You know, we seem to be the only department at this time that has not increased any staff at all or increased hours. That was 4 years ago when we split. There's been issues, yes. I think an increase in hours could probably, or will probably, eliminate a lot of those issues we've had to encounter, so. That's all I got for now.
As I said consistently, I'm saying this is someone who has some goals in regards to fiscal responsibility and good plan. I heard this evening that we need to work out a contract. We need to work out a job description. I attended a finance committee meeting, and you know, at this point in time, there's no recommendation by FinCom on this issue, because they have several unanswered questions. One of the things that I have learned, that it is highly unusual in Dayton's history for any employee in the fall town meeting to get this significant of an increase in wages. I would highly recommend that we sit down, work this out, come up with a job description. and then come back to the annual town meeting with a proposal that is clear, that we not make it up as we go along. Because apparently, I have some questions, as someone who's also worked in the healthcare field for 35 years. We currently have a health agent whose background is engineering, he's a certified engineer. Yet he's advising registered nurses, and soon I believe we're going to be hiring a registered nurse that will be under his supervision. He also advises healthcare professionals, some of which work at the company that I work for in the town of Dayton. So I am well aware of their background, their expertise. And I question whether or not, and this is not a reflection on the individual, but it's on the credibility and the transparency on what is portrayed to people on the outside looking in. I would like to see a reorganization. I would like to see some effort put into what our needs are as far as engineering. I'll refer back to something that I spoke to Mr. Ryan's on the Saturday proposal that he had made many years ago. How much validity that has, since the planning board does have an engineer. And in regards to the Board of Health, a job description, we've had, Mr. Pilling said, we've had a health agent pulled in many, many different directions. He had a crisis in stormwater involving a project in Rock, and he got pulled away from his duties there to deal with that. That makes it difficult for him, in fairness to that health agent, but also makes it difficult for the town. So that's all I stand on that proposal, and I will be voting against this article. Thank you.
For 2 years, we've talked about a contract or some type of agreement with Mr. Pilling. For 2 years, nothing was done. As much as we wanted to get done, it just never happened. And as far as him being an engineer, 50%, I would say, of the town's needs are within Title V, which he's highly qualified to do. As far as nursing, he's been guiding the nurses on COVID rules and regulations and procedures. I would challenge you, Selectmen Hull, to call the nurses and see how much in need they are of Mr. Pilling. He's been spot on and up to date on all his facts regarding COVID. So, you know, to say he's an engineer and that's it, that's not so. He does a lot more things. We do food inspections, we do housing inspections. We watch West Nile, we watch Triple E, we get involved in everything. Everything that happens in the town goes to the Board of Health. So, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and continue because I know where you stand. So I'm done answering questions. And however the board feels, so be it.
Okay. I just wanted to make just a couple statements. So I was also at the Finance Committee meeting, and I just wanted, I know you weren't there, so I'm not going to assume you watched the meeting, but.
I didn't know I was gonna have a meeting.
Yeah, no,
We didn't
understood.
get notified.
Understood.
I don't believe any department has been notified, but there will be another meeting on October 28th.
And that's why there wasn't any response from the
Yeah,
FinCom.
understood. But I just wanted you to know, if you hadn't watched the meeting, that their main concern was actually just the wording of the article, and specifically how it only first alluded I just want to be clear, the language you're seeing here tonight has been amended. What the Finance Committee considered was an article that only alluded to salary, when in reality, as you said tonight, the bulk of the increase is hours. And I just wanted to let the public be aware. I was fortunate enough to go on a perk test with you, Chairman Pires, and with Health Agent Pilling. The issue of why the hours are needed is because of the balance, or imbalance right now, between the field work and the office work. A perk test can take, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so let me know I'm an expert, but I was told that a perk test can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So if Mr. Pilling, who works 28 hours right now, has, I think you told me 3 to 4 a week?
Well, we had 16.
And it ranged.
16 in the month of December.
So if there's 4, just giving an average, 16 divided by 4 weeks in a month is 4 weeks. 4 times 4 is 16. So just so everyone is aware, when that happens, 16 out of his 28 hours are spent in the field, and then everything else that he's asked to do, he has to finish in the 12 hours, is that correct?
Yeah, but I wouldn't really say that 4 is the average. You may get a 6-hour one, but on the average, I would say they're 2 hours.
Okay.
Maybe a little more, but on the average, 2. Would you agree, Mr. Rogers?
These are the experts.
2 or 3 hours.
So I just want everyone to understand that that's where the bulk of the request is coming from. So it's hours, not salary. I have had the pleasure, or not, I guess it's a pleasure, of sitting down there with them, seeing how they work for different things. I think we were working on a grant together at the time. But they're busy and they don't really stop down there. So I'm happy to support it. I know it's needed. It is something that you have been requesting for quite some time. The timing didn't work. And I also wanted to allude to something else that had been brought up earlier tonight. Selectman Hall, you're absolutely right that Finance Committee, since Chairman Swartz was on the committee, which was a very long time, has had a policy of not bringing these to a special town meeting because it's not fully funding a full fiscal year. And so there's a little bit of confusion on what the total is. I did tell them, just so you know, Chairman Pires, I explained the situation, and I just said this is why it's on the warrant for the special town meeting, and so it was explained, and they said.
We already explained what we agreed to in the, sort of, annual town meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, we were supposed to go forward.
And that's exactly what I told them.
But
Yeah, but we had to cut, I think, like $500,000 from the budget.
Correct.
So this is.
yeah, you asked me to hold off to the fall, that's why we're coming to the fall meeting. Okay? I'm sorry,
No.
I know the passion.
Thank you, Mr. Pires.
I respect you, Mr. Pires.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we that we recommend Article 6. Mr. Mullins, actually, I'm gonna retract that. Do you remember from our conversation with Finance Committee, if they had mentioned at all, if they were gonna fund this, where it should come from?
Raise and appropriate because it was an operational expense.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I may, if you're entertaining motions, I motion that we recommend Article 6 with the funding source is to raise and appropriate as prepared this evening.
I'll step down and second that motion. Any further discussion? I'll ask for a vote. Selectman Hull?
No.
Selectman Sobrakis?
Aye.
And Campuchico votes ayes. Majority of the board, Selectmen recommend. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the annual transfer from available funds the amount of $10,057.50 to reimburse the sewer enterprise fund for the unused fiscal year 21 employee health insurance premiums budgeted and paid to the town clerk or take any other action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends no action. Further review is needed. So they're seeking it, if I remember correctly, the Finance Committee reviewed some further information. So I'm not sure if we're prepared to go on this. As my colleagues feel about that.
My instinct would be to just defer as the Finance Committee did until we have more information. If we have more information, I'm happy to hear it.
Sure.
I totally agree. Selectman Zager.
So we won't be taking a vote on Article 7.
Can I make a motion and recommend specifically no action as they said? Okay, just so we're all in sync. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends no action and further review of Article 7.
Second. Any discussion? If not, call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Zager?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Article 8. To see the town will vote to reappropriate the sum of $30,000 from special article account number 010-1-241-0000-21-5850, inspection vehicle initially approved for the purchase and levying of a 2020 Ford Escort hybrid vehicle in Article 11 of the special town meeting of November 16, 2020, and to raise and appropriate and/or transfer a sum of $10,000 from available funds for a total sum of $40,000 to be expended by the building commissioner to purchase and let one hybrid vehicle to be used for the inspectional services or take any action relative thereof. The reason why the finance committee hasn't acted on this is because they didn't like the wording of the article. Remember, it was specific, unfortunately it was specific when we voted on this a year ago, but we said it was going to be Ford Escape hybrid vehicle. They're unavailable, if I remember correctly, so it was specific for that, so now they want it to be a little bit more vague as to what we get. It is going to be a hybrid, it's my understanding, but it won't necessarily need to be Ford Escort hybrid. Selectman Hull?
Procedurally,
Yes.
is it too late to amend and change the wording?
So that's a good question. Yeah, so based on the FinCom discussion on Thursday night, we have already amended the language to include the description of the vehicle approved last year. Originally, when we outlined what was in the special town meeting article from November 2020, we didn't actually have the words 2020 Ford Escape hybrid vehicle. We just had vehicle, so we added that in there. We have also checked with council as to the intent of the article, and what it intends to do, and council has approved it. As of yesterday afternoon. So yeah, that has all happened, so this is the updated final language based on the FinCom discussion Thursday night.
So we couldn't amend this to clean up the language, so it'll appear on the ballot?
That's already happened.
Yeah, this is the cleaned up link.
This is what.
Yeah, that's been cleaned up.
So this is the amended.
Correct.
Article 8.
Based on what they said, they had to do some
Yeah,
work.
checking with legal counsel.
Yeah, we covered all of our bases there. Yes, this is legal, it makes sense.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Mr. Administrator, so I
Yes.
just want to be clear. Council has seen this specific language
Yes,
as prepared this evening and is comfortable with it.
yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, actually, what will be the funding sources for both parts?
So the funding,
Or just for the second?
free cash,
Okay.
and then the 30,000 is the reappropriation.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends Article 8 specifically for the sum of $10,000 should be taken from free cash. And the $30,000 will be reappropriated from special article as prepared this evening.
Second. Any discussion? None, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Zager?
Aye.
And Campuchico goes aye. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $13,000 to be expended by the Board of Selectmen for the purchase and installation of one high efficiency HVAC unit at town hall to take any other action relative thereto. And the finance committee recommends transfer from free cash. So the public knows, last year we purchased two. Our HVAC equipment is 40 years old. Building's actually 42 years old. We had to purchase two, they failed last year, and this is the third one that has failed. This is the, if you go in the buildings, the front offices of the floor. So that's why we need it. It has failed We've had units put into these offices for the summer because of the air conditioning. I understand the heat works,
Yes.
so we will be able to have heat, so there's no immediate need to do it, but this is the time to replace it. In that,
We're lucky.
we don't need the air conditioner right now, so let's put it in and then.
Sure.
I just like to motion. Yes, sir. Make a motion to select to recommend that the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $13,000 to be expended by the Board of Selectmen for the purchase and installation of one high-efficiency HVAC unit at Town Hall, or take any other action relative thereto.
I'm gonna second that.
The Finance Committee recommends the transfer of free cash.
Yes, can we amend that? Specifically from free cash?
Can we amend at this point?
No, what I'm saying is, when Selectman Hall read it, he said, well, that we vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds. So I'm saying, can we change your motion? I'm sorry, it should be more clear.
To transfer
from.
from free cash. Was
Are you okay with that? Okay, I'm gonna second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, I actually have two very quick questions. First, my question is, why does it have to be expended by the Board of Selectmen if the building commissioner is doing the installation? Or helping with it, oversee it?
That is that is a good question. It could be the building commissioner if the board so decides. I don't see a problem with that.
I guess, I'm wondering if there's a reason why it specifically says the Board of Selectmen.
I just assume they would be paying the bill.
Okay. This doesn't bind us in any way, like, we're not gonna have to do the work, right?
We would just be responsible.
Okay,
But just for the record, we not paying the bill.
correct.
Some of that is true.
And I just wanted the public to know, for this specific, HVAC unit, this, transferring from free cash and asking taxpayers, to assist in the funding of this was not the first choice. We tried looking at two different grant sources. We first tried with Green Communities and they said no, and I think that was actually when the first two units originally broke. And then we also, thanks to our town administrator, looked into CARES funding as well, and that's not possible either. So I just want people to know that the first option was not to ask you to fund it.
I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Secaucus?
Aye.
And Candy Chico is aye. Article 10, the city town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $15,000 to be expended by the Board of Selectmen to purchase a cybersecurity insurance policy and all necessary equipment and accessories to establish a secure two-factor authentication process for town employees or take any other action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends to raise and appropriate $10,000 and transfer from free cash $5,000.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends to, votes to recommend this, to raise and appropriate $10,000 and to transfer from free cash $5,000 as prepared this evening.
Second.
Just so the public knows, this is, a lot of towns in the area had a cybersecurity insurance policy, and we just want to make sure that we have it. Also, it's very important because of malware and all that kind of, ransomware.
And the ransom, when we have to pay the Bitcoin, so that towns in this area have actually been victims to it. So the ransom is expensive too. So I know $15,000,
It's more than this.
correct. So I know $15,000 is, nothing to scoff at. But when you're a victim, you can also be a victim more than once too. It adds up.
Any other questions? I'll entertain, do we already?
I think you know.
Yeah, can do the second.
Emily second. Yep.
I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull. Selectman Secaucus.
Aye.
And Candy Chico. I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to read the next two pages of warrants, Article 11 through Article 23.
Mr. Chairman, it okay if I read the next, it doesn't really matter.
You guys can fight.
Okay.
You want to do the next page, now do 16 and 23?
Sure. Article 11, to see if
So I
the,
get to do two, and you guys can do one.
to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $40,000, and just so everyone knows, town administrator's recommendation is $30,000, to be expended by the Dayton Trails Committee to fund a feasibility study to provide viable options and initial concepts to connect the future 2-mile DCR Sweet Snow Trail to the north and south with on-road and off-road trail options, to connect the town of Dayton to the Taunton River Trails Network, north across the 3-mile river to Taunton and south along the waterfront to Somerset, or take any action relative thereto. And just so everyone is aware, the reason why there is not a recommendation on this article is just like you weren't there, the Trails Committee also was not at the Finance Committee meeting. And so I think the Finance Committee had questions about
Yes,
the
we
project.
have Jeff Cavallo,
Mr. Cavallo,
the chair of the Trails Committee. Mr. Cavallo, do you wish to speak at this point?
Yes, thank you. Jeff Cavallo, 2124 Tommy's Way, and also chair of the Trails Committee. And Karen Alves, one of the members, is also present here. So I presented this over the summer, and we initially had this on the annual town meeting, and we were asked to push it off to this fall special. But the gist is the Department of Conservation and Recreation has been awarded the design and engineering funding to put in a 2-mile section of rail trail in the heart of the town of Dayton. The south end point of it is on Somerset Avenue behind Alice's Last Stop. And the north end of it is, I always forget the name of that road, I'm sorry. 2 miles north of it is Sandpiper Way, is in the vicinity of where it ends at the north end of it. So what we want to do is, we're seeing this beautiful concept that the Department of Conservation and Recreation wants to put in the middle of our town. And we want to do our due diligence to see what the best approaches are, best concepts would be to tie in that 2-mile section, first of all, from the north into Taunton, because we'd like to go across the 3-mile river to tie it into the Taunton River Trails network. And then we also want to see what we can do on the south end of it when it comes out in Somerset Avenue. And in both of those situations, there are some potentially viable on-road and off-road options. So in order to do that kind of work, we need to put in for grants. And in talking to Serpid and Bill Napolitano and that group, recommendation was to, step number one was to look if we can fund a feasibility study. So what we have before you here in this article is really step one. So we want to put in that feasibility study, have an engineering firm come in and do a thorough look through on what the options are on the north and south sections here. And then we'll have something viable and something concrete. So when we go forward for grants, we're not just a bunch of volunteers from the town of Dayton who have a really great idea. We're a bunch of volunteers from the town of Dayton who have evidence on what the viable options are, because an engineering firm has gone through and looked at it, and we have supporting documentation. So that's the point of this here.
Can you let us know why the original figure was $30,000 and now there's a recommendation of $40,000?
Right. So initially, when we put in the original request back in June, we were using a 18-month-old figure, which was a ROM we got from an engineering firm that said it would be about $30K to do that kind of work. After talking with our group and our board, we thought maybe it'd be wise to expect something in the mid-30s with the last 18 to 24 months that have passed since our initial swag that we got from an engineering firm. So this is just additional padding just in case it comes in a little higher, so that we're not having to come back and go through this process again.
Mr. Cavallo, this grant application, if this were to fail this year, could you reapply for this grant next year?
There is no grant right now. This is step one to get the information and the documentation so that we can apply for grants. If we don't get this funding this year or at the special town meeting, I suppose our alternative option would be to to go back and either potentially, worst case scenario is go to the next annual town meeting for the next cycle, or go to alternate funding in town, which we've tried in the past, but have not succeeded, and that's why we're here today.
Not to say, I
No,
think.
Dr. Zika, I had to say,
I don't like, but it's actually related to what you had just asked. So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's sort of like where we're at with the sewer project. You have to prove to the grant awarding agency that you have a feasible or viable plan, right? Before they will award you any money, obviously, to do it.
Yes, sir.
And then my other question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is Finance Committee, and I certainly don't want to speak for anyone, but Finance Committee did have a question about whether or not this plan or this idea involves Broad Cove Nature Trail. And the reason is because it's not all, there's an entryway that's not owned by the town. So I didn't want to answer, I was not privy to that information, so I did want to ask you that as well.
We're trying to keep the scope of the feasibility studies open as possible. We don't specifically expect tie-in with the Broad Cove Nature Trail, but knowing that the Broad Cove Nature Trail is just to the south of where the Somerset Avenue, and then going down Pleasant Street, I would expect that the feasibility study would come back and say, sticking to on-road section there on Pleasant would be the most viable option. Knowing that as you're going along south on Pleasant, you've also got Broad Cove Nature Trail to the west. So everything's open at this point. There's nothing solid on what the plan is moving forward. These are just concepts and feasible designs that are going to be assembled.
Thank you.
Yes, I think you should attend, if you can, the Finance Committee meeting on October 28th. What time is that? I don't remember. We'll post the time. It's 6 yeah, that was early the last time. So you probably should attend that meeting so you can explain to the Finance Committee what your concerns are and why you're going forward with this warrant article.
Sure, and that's on the 28th, you said?
It's 28th, and I'm not sure exactly the time. We believe it's 6 o'clock, but I'm not sure.
So we'll follow up with you, Jeff, as well.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to ask about the meeting on the 25th. I know when we spoke over the summer, you said it'd be a good idea for me to
Yes,
attend and present.
Yes, I've asked that you attend that meeting also, so the public can hear what you're telling us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Selectman Hull?
what I'm about to say is in reference to many of the issues that are going to come up, and I'll help explain when I vote no. I came on this board, there were some things that the people in the community had said. They were concerned about the tax rate, and they were concerned about the needs. And since I've been a member of the Board of Selectmen, I've added an additional concern, and that is sound planning. Some of my goals is a minimum of a 10% capital stabilization account. Until then, I'm going to be fiscally conservative. Another goal that I would like to see the town have is 5% minimum in its stabilization account based on its budget. I'd also like to see, and we're working on it, and I'm excited about the work that the Capital Outlay Planning Committee will do, but I want to see a plan. And also, when groups come before this board looking for money, they have a plan, not hopes. Well, we might find a grant, we might do this. We have a definitive plan. Speaking specifically about the trails committee, there are a lot of uncertainties. One of the biggest concerns that is being negotiated right now is that there's going to be a major block, impediment to the completion of this trail. That's an uncertainty. We don't even know if we're going to be able to finish this trail. So to do a feasibility study when that issue hasn't been resolved, I have concerns, and I can't support it this time. I also have another concern. This proposal came before the CPC. That body is an independent body. They receive funding somewhat from the taxpayers, but they also receive private funding. And they too had some concerns. I am not against this project down the road, but at this time, because of the uncertainty, because some of these goals that I've just mentioned haven't been met, I can't support this.
Mr. Chairman, so as you know, Selectman Hall, I always respect everyone's opinion, but I did just want to add one thing. To your point about sometimes there are unknowns and specifically with Broad Cove Nature Trail, and we all know the history. So I share those concerns with you. So I just want to be very upfront about that. But the reason I'm going to support this is because I think the point of the feasibility study is knowing that may not be possible, that entrance route or access point. I'd be interested in seeing what the feasibility study determines in terms of what is actually possible with the given route. So I'd be interested to see what it comes up with. And the other point is, I totally agree and respect your opinions regarding planning. I would hope that if something like this were to pass at a town meeting, that there would be some kind of a plan put together by the Trails Committee, and I'm just using you as an example because that's what we're talking about right now, with a list of things like possible grants, deadlines for applications. Like, I agree, they need to be more specific. So I just wanted to say my point about the feasibility study and how that's the point. But I do share a lot of your questions and concerns as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll entertain a motion.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Cavallo, I do support this project, but I would prefer, if it's okay with my colleagues, that we wait to make a decision on this till we hear back from the Finance Committee and see what that discussion is between the Trails Committee and the Finance Committee. And also, it's unclear to me if they do support it, where they would want to, what they would want to use, as a funding source. So I would not be prepared to vote on this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I would second this motion.
To not vote?
We can table it.
Yes.
Okay, there's no motion. We'll, when we meet with the FinCom, we'll have this conversation with the next, because it's the Board of Selectmen's meeting also, we can make a motion at that point.
Mr. Cavallo,
Yes, sir.
I know you're very busy, you work full time, and I totally respect that. Maybe it might be not the worst idea, if I may, to task members of your committee with doing a little bit of that research on things like what possible funding sources could be, so we can start to fill in those blanks, and I think it might go a long way to garnering some public support as well.
Okay, you mean from, if we do get the feasibility study for
Correct.
grant funding and what the next steps are?
Correct.
Okay, will do. We have a meeting tomorrow, so that works out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavallo.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Excuse me. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, yes, I will just reading it, and or transfer from available funds the sum of $225,000 to be expended by the police and fire departments in the build out of a 2-site public safety rated repeater system, new portable radios, and any necessary equipment relative thereto, or take any action relative thereto. And the Finance Committee has no recommendation on this, Mr. Chairman.
This question is for Mr. Mullin. My understanding of state and federal fundings in particular.
Yes.
In particular.
Yes.
Sewer, water, broadband, correct?
And public health and safety, yes.
With that in mind, is this reimbursable? If the town approved it, could we still apply for that and reimburse this?
So what I'm actually hoping as we go forward in our ARPA planning process, that this really could be an item working with the capital outlay committee, that we could fund through our ARPA funding.
So with that, okay, just with that in mind, if we did appropriate this, some of the goals that I mentioned earlier, this money could go in child working towards that. Stabilization goal, capital.
So yeah, through funding this priority from another source like APA, yes. Like it would allow us to, like actually not have to use free cash. Like already local funding to pay for this priority. So I do expect, as we begin to develop our APA plan, I really want to look at that priority, through capital outlay planning, but through APA planning as well.
So there's a vote, what does the board want to do?
Well, can I ask you a question? I cannot recall why finance committee did not have a recommendation on this specific article.
Did they want to hear from the police and fire?
So I had explained the same thing to FinCom, that it was our hope, like I actually, in my spreadsheet, I did actually outline, that I recommended to defer, and to explore ARPA funding to fund this priority.
And that doesn't impede anything that those two departments may be doing or need to do using the older technology.
No.
Okay.
No, they can still use the older technology,
Yeah.
but this would allow them to upgrade it.
Okay. And there's
So
no,
there's a real need for it, but if we have the ability to fund it, ideally through ARPA funding, and we don't have to draw on our free cash to stable or capital stabilization at a time we're trying to build that up, that would be ideal. But again, there's a need for it, but hopefully as we come together, like in the next 6 weeks to develop a plan for our ARPA funding, as I mentioned, this is one thing that I hope in the very short term we'll be able to do, utilizing our ARPA funding.
So we'll know more by the annual town meeting, obviously, then whether or not we're gonna get the ARPA funds for this, so we're probably investors at the annual town meeting.
Probably not in line for the annual town meeting because we're waiting for the Bristol County ARPA process to roll out. It's based on what I heard from someone today, I don't think it's actually gonna roll out before a town meeting, but I am fairly cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to include this in our ARPA funding plan.
So can I assume the board does not want to make a recommendation also on this?
yeah, I have no, yeah. I'm comfortable with not making the recommendations. And I'd also be interested, you know how the state representative had routinely gets these, I don't want to call them small because it makes it sound like it's not important, but she gets these smaller grants for things like the fire department
Yes.
for various different safety equipment and things. There's not anything like that
So.
for these specific items?
So, from my understanding, the local funding that she typically brings back, like with support from the Bristol County Fire Chiefs, is for like a regional network. What we're talking about here in this priority, like the local repeaters, like radio upgrades where we know, we already have questions with our service.
Thank you. Yes. I have no further questions. We're not gonna make, we're just not gonna, we'll see. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $150,000 for engineering and design services for the Pleasant Street Bridge reconstruction project or take any other action relative thereto. Finance committee recommends transfer from free cash.
Yes.
Could you speak on the condition and safety concerns of that bridge?
Yes, so, as I couldn't return that the bridge, as many folks know, was constructed in 1914. So the bridge itself is about 107 years old. It is a posted bridge, so like it does have a lower capacity in terms of weight limitations on it. From what I understand, in about 2018, 2019, the Board of Selectmen in the town, through the efforts and work of the prior town administrator, and the highway superintendent, had gone out, and had an engineering analysis, that was conducted on the bridge. And the analysis recommended either, a full bridge replacement, or the replacement of the bridge superstructure. Agreeing through the leadership of Highway Superintendent Ferry, we've been working with, the Mass Department of Transportation. At that time and since then, we even met with them, at the site, of the Pleasant Street Muddy Cove Bridge, about 2 weeks ago. And, the bridge is still relatively structurally the same as it was, in 2019. But, as I mentioned, we do have infrastructure safety challenges with the bridge. As I mentioned, it is a posted bridge, so it's weight limitations. You haven't decreased from what they originally were.
Would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Ferry a question?
Oh, he can probably speak to it better than I could, yes.
Mr. Ferry, in your professional judgment, can we wait for the possibility of grant funding, or is this a project that needs our immediate attention?
This is a step we should consider doing prior to grant funding, be shovel ready, be attracted to a grant.
So we need to do the engineering work to apply for a grant.
Yes. It's still thinking, Mr. Chairman, one of the things, in the one-stop grant application process, that I mentioned that we worked on, in the early summer, we had actually considered applying, through the state's rural program, for grant funding to actually fund the replacement of the bridge. However, because we didn't have the engineering done, we had to do a hard stop and we couldn't even do anything. So yes, actually funding the engineering, very much puts us in line for state and federal funding for us.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion. Board of Selectmen recommend that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of money not to exceed $150,000 for engineering and design services for the Pleasant Street Bridge reconstruction project.
I'm gonna second that.
Any discussion?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for, especially Mr. Ferry, for keeping this on our radar, and it needs to be done. So we need to make progress on it. And like any infrastructure project, it sounds like you kind of have to show whoever the grant awarding agency is that you can complete the project in a certain amount of time, or they won't give you the funds. So happy to second that.
I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Sokrat? Selectman Hull? What time is it? It's like 10. By the way, we're gonna be out of here by 10. Just so everybody knows. I know you wanna stay long, everybody, but we're gonna be out of here by 10. And you already voted aye? Aye. Thank you for keeping it.
Thank you.
Next item, 14.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds an amount not to exceed $30,000 for planning and permitting costs to redesign the driveway and traffic pattern and at a maintenance facility at Dayton Elementary School / Dayton Middle School, or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends a transfer from free cash.
So we've already, townspeople have already appropriated some funds for this, right?
85.
Yeah, 85,000 last November.
We need additional money because they discovered wetlands, I guess. Right, configuration may be a little different. And this is at the request of residents in town who have children, students, elementary and middle school.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add, the maintenance facility part, which is specifically outlined in here, was a specific request from the school district.
Yes. Selectman Paul wasn't present at the meeting, you and I were at that, when he made that request. I'll entertain a motion.
You have any point? Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Capital outlay, all applications are due in by October, was it November?
18.
That's why this is on
Right,
here.
the capital outlay committee that just recently formed, and we're gonna be ready for the annual town meeting, but we were not prepared to review all these requests for this meeting. But we're asking everybody to give us a 5-year projection so that we don't, like we did with the modulars, remember the modulars, all of a sudden we needed 6 classrooms and we had to take money out of stabilization.
We've already spent $85,000.
We haven't
haven't
spent, no, I
spent
think
anything.
it's 20 or 20.
Yeah, we spent around 20,000 of the 85 so far, but understanding that the process, because of the vernal pool and the wetlands, we'd have to go through additional permitting, like and through the Army Corps of Engineers, and through the state MEPA process. At that point, at that point, understanding that we need to go through those processes, added an additional $30,000 to what it was already initially quoted to do the permitting and engineering.
So the total planning cost would be $115,000, correct?
Planning, engineering, and permitting, yes.
Now, if we take that into consideration, we're looking at a bridge right now that I have been told is $1.5 million. That is, at the very least, 2 to 3 years away. Is that pretty accurate?
I'm sorry, you're talking about the Pleasant Street Bridge?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did I say bridge? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, the road.
Okay, yep.
So, right now, we're looking at a $1.5 million potential price tag. Not
Yes.
taking into consideration that the price is 3 years from now, this road is not going to be 1.5 million, it's going to be significantly more. My concern is, and will continue to be, where does this project fit in with our capital plans? And how will this project impact other proposed projects, such as the library, fire department, and the DPW? I'll speak specifically about the library. Since 2000, I've watched the library project get deprioritized because other projects affected this place or that list. Will this road have a negative influence on that? Again, it gets back to the uncertainty, many unanswered questions, and increased expenses that
Like we had to talk. So, okay, number one, it was the voters that rejected the library, so it wasn't like the town officials that prioritized
I understand that.
the library, it was the voters. The second, we got several complaints, and I was at a school committee meeting when we heard complaints as well as before the board, so prior to coming here, of parents who had students in the school that was concerned about the city. We have cars that back up to 138. We have cars that impacts the stoplight at 138 that people have to wait because parents are dropping off their kids. So there is a serious safety issue. And so I'm supportive of this. I realize the cost. Obviously, we always have to worry about the cost of anything. I support this. We've already, town residents have already funded 85,000. We're asking for an additional 30,000. And I want to see what the project's going to look like, and we may have to possibly get rid of the maintenance building that they're seeking to cut down.
Well, they don't want the plan anymore, they said.
Yes.
I assume that means they don't want
we
them
may
making
want to
some
consider, not, whenever we get this engineering, not to fund money for the building maintenance floor that the school district is asking for.
Just, those are all very valid concerns. I've been asked the same questions, but I did just want to touch upon the library since that was specifically mentioned. As you know, Selectmen help from our conversations with, specifically with Rep. Haddad last week, we have a grant application that we are on a very long wait list for, towards the bottom of that, for a project that nobody wants to do. It seems like the only thing everyone agrees on is that that project is not going to work. And I also agree with that. However, we also found out, let's back up. We all know that a library won't happen unless it's at least partially funded from a grant, and rightfully so. The grant awarding agency, which reviews and awards the grants, we were told by Mrs. Tavares, won't take applications, meaning won't even accept them until 2027. So even if we wanted to propose a project for a new library tomorrow, we're gonna have to wait 6 years to even send in that application. So in terms of prioritizing things, my thought is sometimes priorities are determined just by simple timing. So obviously we know that this project has some hurdles in terms of Army Corps of Engineers. I imagine that takes a while. But my thought is, and I don't play a building project office manager on TV certainly, but my thought is that the parking lot reconstruction project would happen well before a library happened, because even when we're eligible to send in that grant, day one, 2027, there's a review process, and then, you know, who knows, you have to answer their questions, and they'll give feedback, and it's a very lengthy process, and then there's building the building. So I don't mean to be like the Debbie Downer of the board, and I know you've all worked hard on this, and I really respect, support, and appreciate that, but the library is not gonna happen until 2030.
I can appreciate what you're saying. And I don't mean to put Karen on the spot, but as a member of,
Put them on the spot.
as a member of the capital outlay committee, I've been, what Brett has said, it's huge,
Yeah, I'm optimistic,
very large.
I'm hoping that's going to be sooner than that, as maybe everybody doesn't know, but we were already approved for a $4 million grant with a matching grant, so we would have to come up with $4 million to add on to the existing library. I am opposed to that, and I honestly think that we can build a library cheaper than that, but that means that whenever it comes up, I believe Mr. Varus said that we're number 11. We do about 2 a year, the state funds about 2 a year, so we're talking maybe 5 or 6 years down the road. We may get to, I'm hoping, reject that and come up with a new plan. And as you know, we can't send an application now, and they're not accepting applications right now. So I had conversations with the town administrator. We are looking at different options that I personally feel may be cheaper if it becomes a realistic option for us. So we're checking into other options. I do think it shouldn't cost us, even today, $8 million for the library. And I would prefer specifically a library that maybe has a community room or something like that, that people can meet in and stuff like that. So, but that's somewhere down the road. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not in 10 years. If it is, I hope that they give people who are 80 years old discount on late fees at that point. That's the ELB, hopefully. But I understand your concerns, and the capital outlay committee, as you know, has just begun. Town Administrator Mellis come up with a great format for us, the review of the different projects that come before us, and we will be prioritizing and make the recommendations. We don't have the final say. Capital outlay committee does not have the final say. It's recommendations. It's going to go before us, and then it's going to go before the residents.
I do have one final question. I'd like to make the motion. There's been great discussion about school department not wanting to participate in funding this project. So if we go to fund this project, will determine how it is completed, is that correct?
That is correct, and you actually bring up a good point, and I apologize that I haven't made this point, and I don't want this taken out of context, and I don't mean this as a slight on anybody, because we owe it to work with, even if we are the funding source, the town, we still owe it to the school department, which are the elected officials responsible for dealing with the schools, to work with them. However, the school district was never gonna fund this anyway. These are Dayton schools, and contrary to what some in Rehoboth believe, Dayton would be responsible, as we always do, for paying this. The reason why I'm supportive of the project going forward, I also have concerns about a $1.5 million project. We have school committee members that have expressed a desire to re-study a new, I guess I shouldn't say that, capacity issues that have been plaguing the district. But plans can be changed. And whether this passes or not, we are going to come back to the table with the school committee and decide what is best. So for anyone watching, I just want to let you know those conversations are ongoing, they will continue, and we will devise a plan that hopefully solves the traffic issue, but also, I want to say this in the right way, also is palatable, but also makes sense and is affordable.
Mr. Chairman, as someone whose wife supervised students, as someone who saw the unsafe conditions on that roadway, I would like to make a motion. The town, for the Board of Selectmen to recommend that the town transfer from free cash an amount not to exceed $30,000 for planning and permitting costs to redesign the driveway and traffic pattern and add a maintenance facility at the Dayton Elementary School, Dayton Middle School.
I'm going to second that. Any further? Yes, I wanted to make one last statement, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I want everyone to know there has been discussion, rightfully so, of a $1.5 million price tag. That is a lot of money. I just want everyone to know that just like with the HVAC system, which was much cheaper than this, I feel we owe it to the residents, to parents in the district, to the students and the educators, that we should ask taxpayers to fund this as a very last resort. We need to exhaust every grant funding opportunity. We need to give periodic updates. And I just feel very strongly that that should be the last thing, is asking the taxpayers to pay this. So I hear everyone's concern. This will get the project rolling, but we certainly don't have to ask people to pay it. We can I don't want to say hold up the project, but we can wait to get a grant to complete it while other discussions are ongoing with the building study committee as well.
I'm supporting this.
Someone?
Political
Yeah.
feedback. But the one thing that needs to happen as quickly as possible is those safety concerns get mitigated. I understand there have been some attempts made to try, but those have to continue. Because from my observations from lamenting on my wife would have, something bad is going to happen there. Something soon.
And we're trying to avoid that. And we've had conversations, the police department had less staff before, but we talked about it might be something we can run, reconsider, that they get involved when these kids are being dropped off, kids being picked up, as far as speeding things up.
So what I will support, and the reason why this has not happened is my understanding is that community outreach officer position has not been created or staffed, but once it is, since their job is partly traffic enforcement, I would like, and I am happy to request, and I will reach out to the police chief, I apologize, I didn't ask him before saying this publicly, what I would like to see until we have a permanent solution, what I'll call a permanent solution. What we should be having happen is every, I think, drop off and pick up is 1 hour each a day, so 2 hours a day. Correct me if I'm wrong, parents of school-age children. Why can't we have the community outreach officer who has a regular 8-hour day do 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at the end of the day until such time that we have a more permanent solution, and then the other 6 hours of the day, would be spent doing their regular duties. So that's my idea. I'm happy to make that suggestion when the time comes.
And do we know, I know it's kind of off subject, but do we know the drop off for elementary and the middle school at different times, or?
They were when I was there.
They are,
So maybe a little bit more now.
they interval.
Elementary school, I don't want to say actually, I really
There
don't
is-
know.
From what I saw, there was overlap. Because they expanded and, but as you said, and I understand there were 2 members of the school committee who came to that PTO meeting. There were certain issues that we need their leadership on from an educational, administrative point of view. We don't have the input with the parents or the influence, like the PTO or the principal or the superintendent.
I agree.
Karen, we've already made the motion.
Yes, the motion
And
is made and
second.
seconded, and I need your vote.
I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Dr. Z, and Campuchico is also. Thank you.
Good discussion.
Article 15.
To see, I keep doing that, my apologies, to see if the town will vote to authorize a total expenditure of $50,000 to be raised and appropriated and or transferred from available funds for FY22 expenses as follows. Raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds. Personnel expenses, 519, account 519, Board of Health, Public Health Nurse, $5,000. Expenses, account 135, accounting, $5,000. Account 174, budget reconciliation, $1,000. Account 132, reserve fund, $10,000. Account 192, public buildings, $15,000. Account 231, ambulance billing software fees, $7,000. In account 945, additional insurance costs, $7,000. Total raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds, $50,000, or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds. So the question is there.
Questions on this article? Entertain a motion?
I want to be very careful about this as I don't recall which was coming from which. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Before I make this motion, are we okay to just say, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends Article 15 as the Finance Committee had recommended? Because I don't remember which.
So yeah, to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds,
So we
and
don't have to
then,
specify which account is which?
all that will happen in the motion.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there any motion? Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends Article 15 as the Finance Committee did, to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull? Selectman Segravas?
Aye.
And Campuchico is aye. You would like to read Article 16?
Article 16. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $12,000 to be expended by the Board of Health to fund a hazardous waste disposal day in the town, or take any other action relative thereto.
Second.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
And there's a second.
Any discussion? If not, call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas?
Aye.
Campuchico is an aye. Article 17.
To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $200,000 to the capital stabilization account, or take any action relative thereto.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend transfer of free cash not to exceed $200,000 to the capital stabilization account.
Second. My only comment about this is, I think we're all on board, and we want to get as much money as we can, because the capital stabilization account as well as the stabilization account, for future expenses, so that we can do some more serious planning.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion?
May I ask the town administrator one question through you, Mr. Chairman? Regarding this article,
Yes.
we have received additional information from our fantastic town accountant, Mrs. Vining, and she had indicated that after our meeting with Finance Committee last week, that there was actually around $150,000 more in that account than we had originally anticipated. And so I guess my question for you is Finance Committee's that's not going to change their recommendation at all? They're going to keep theirs the same?
So not at this point, how will anything change? There may be, no, I don't anticipate anything changing at all. And the balance of our stabilization with the reconciled number, based on the journal entry, from the article that was approved at the 2020 special town meeting for the $150,000 that you mentioned, Dr. Z, the balance of the stabilization fund as it stands right now today is $783,018.53.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
We made the motion.
We did the vote. Was it the 200,000?
Yes.
200. And you seconded that?
Yes.
I support the 200,000.
But we're talking about.
Are we still on Article 17?
Yeah, sorry.
I wrote it down.
No, we're not.
Recommended Article 18. Article 17, yes. Call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is also aye. Article 18.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $200,000 to the stabilization account, or to take any action relative thereto.
Second.
I was reading the article, right?
So, were you making a motion?
No, you
Oh, my apologies.
Sorry. And the committee recommends transfer of free cash of $150,000. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $200,000 to the stabilization account.
I'm gonna have
Free cash.
to. I'm gonna second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? I support this.
So if I could, for the regular stabilization account, the FinCom is recommending $150,000.
We know.
I know,
Alright,
We
so,
recommend 200,000.
200.
okay.
We're doing it different.
What I said earlier about our goal.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Any effort that we can make to avoid taxing people for projects that we know need to be done, through grants, through saving money, like everybody does, I'm sure, in their own life, should be done, and those efforts should be made, so I'm happy to support this as well.
And I just want to say this publicly. I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Mullen on the issue of codes. And when I was running for office, I asked some people
And the issue of what is,
on the issue of financial goals, capital stabilization, recommended goal. And I asked both the assessor's office and the accountant's office, this is in March. And the answers that I got from Mr. Mullen were right on and backed by past practice and experience, and I really appreciate it.
You're doing the old Ronald Reagan Trust the Verify method there?
Well, You know, I want to say that because he had a lot of influence in what I said. And I know at some point he's going to come in with a plan that's more aggressive than that. I'm at this point, we walk before we run, but we definitely need to do something.
I agree.
Mr. Mullin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman, thank you.
And I mentioned that publicly for an issue that we're going to be talking about shortly, Mr. Mullin's evaluation.
We get to it.
Ooh.
Wait,
Then it's running.
I think we need to
They say no, 11 more pages of
No
warrants.
worries, we need to
I think we're on page 4. We're at the beginning of page 4.
What article do we vote?
No,
No, we haven't voted yet, so I'm gonna call for, there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Dr. Z. Campuchico is also on. Article 19.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from access funds a sum of money not to exceed $14,000 to be expended by the building commissioner to purchase 2 mini-split HVAC heat pump systems for the lower level cable television office in town hall, or to take any other action relative thereto.
second.
There wasn't a motion.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna recommend transfer from the access fund, this is for the downstairs and the basement of the cable equipment, we need to make sure it's controlled, temperature and humidity and all that kind of stuff, so we don't lose the input.
Wait, you want to be able to control the temperature down there?
Do we want to?
Just kidding.
It's long overdue. I mean, we have an AC down there now, and it's, we got a server, it has to stay at a certain temperature. And, Tom was great putting that in last year, because as you know, summer was really hot, so we've been waiting a long time for this project.
Can I ask them a question about this?
Sure.
This is for the studio, right? Like the expanded area, or is this for that smaller part, right?
So the 2 mini splits would be for both sections of our office, one being the side of the office that houses our server
Yep.
equipment, and the other mini split being for the proposed studio.
Studio,
on the side.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Did we make a motion yet? No.
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we recommend Article 19 and to fund it via a transfer from the PEG Access Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas? Campuchico is an aye also. Article 20.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the total sum $64,500 to be expended by the highway department to purchase 1 mid-mounted boom mower, or to take any action relative thereto.
Finance Committee recommends transfer from free cash. If you remember, my colleagues, that when this came before the annual town meeting, or when we went through the Finance Committee, I think we agreed to split. They wanted to purchase a tractor, and then also purchase this equipment. Because of our finances at the time, we decided just to purchase the tractor, and the rest was part of that. And now we're talking about the one mid-mounted boom mower. This is the mower, correct, Mr. Ferry, that goes along the sides of the road, and am I correct? And cuts through the vegetation. I know you guys are doing a great job of that. And I think because of all the rain, we've had to do it more times than normal. Any discussion on this? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer from free cash the total sum of $64,500 to be expended by the highway superintendent to purchase 1 mid-mounted boom mower.
Second. Any discussion?
I do have one question, and I knew the answer to this, so I do apologize, either for Mr. Ferry or Mr. Lewis.
You know the answer, you can ask the question.
I forgot the answer as well. Is this used or new? New one?
New.
I remember now. Okay, sorry.
Do we have any other questions? By the way, this is water, it's not vodka. I wish it was vodka, it's water. Call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas? Aye. Campuchico is an aye. Article 21.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds sum of $150,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, established to cover the unfunded actuarial liability for retirees' health care and life insurance benefits, or to take any action relative thereto.
Finance Committee recommends transfer for free cash of $90,000 and raising appropriate $35,000. So they're recommending $125,000 to move that.
Yes, total funding of 125 with the breakdown.
Any discussion or a motion? Entertain a motion.
Well, my question for my colleagues would be, before I make the motion, just like with the stabilization account where we did 200 and FinCom recommended 50, is the board wanting to do the full 150, or are we okay with the 125? And just for the public, so you're aware, I don't want to say this is an unfunded liability, but it is something that every municipality grapples with, having to pay for people's post-employment benefits. So it is something we're obligated to do, and we're trying to put money away to do towards doing that.
And we're in better shape than some other towns.
We are,
Some other
because we-
towns, yes, because we're proactive. We want to make sure that this is funded, it's fairness to our towns.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to transfer from free cash $90,000 and raise and appropriate $35,000, sum of $125,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, established to cover the unfunded actuarial liability for retirees' health care and life insurance benefits, or to take any action relative to.
Second.
Give a second. Any discussion? I want to support the recommendation of the FinCom.
I will as well.
So we have 100, so that 150 will be 120.
120, that would be our recommendation to the rest. I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas? And Campuchico was the motion. Article 22.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and a transfer from available funds the sum of $6,000 to be used for public utilities appraisals, New England Power Company, Massachusetts Electric Company, and Eversource Gas Company, as required by the Department of Revenue for the fiscal year 2022, or to take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends transfer from free cash.
Wait a minute, that's enough.
So this is, my understanding, this is an annual thing that we fund every year, we bring a special time meeting to the residents. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends a transfer from free cash to fund Article 22 in the sum of $6,000 to be used for public utilities appraisals, New England Power Company, Massachusetts Electric Company, and Eversource Gas Company as required by the Department of Revenue for fiscal year 2022. Karen, you can just write as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas?
Aye.
And Campuchico was the Article 23.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $8,000 to be used for assistance for the fiscal year 2023 certification reevaluation of real estate and commercial property of the town, or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends transfer from free cash.
Just like the previous article, is something that we do at the special time. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the selectmen vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $8,000 to be used for assistance for the fiscal year 2023 certification reevaluation of real estate and commercial property of the town, or take any action relative thereto.
This is the recommendation. So a second.
Second.
I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas?
Aye.
Campuchico was the Article 24. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $64,000 to be expended by the police chief for the purchase of one fully equipped police vehicle, including computer, firearm, patrol rifle, radio, antenna, and any accessories relative thereto, or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends transfer from free cash as, I think you read that the Finance Committee second order. on an annual basis, we believe that we're gonna always replace, because they get $150,000 to $200,000 in these vehicles, and we would always purchase a new vehicle. So, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I happily motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to recommend a transfer from free cash in the sum of $64,000 to be expended by the police chief for the purchase of one fully equipped police vehicle, including computer, firearm, patrol rifle, radio, antenna, and any accessories relative thereto.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas? Aye. Campuchico votes aye. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate annual transfer from available funds a sum to not to exceed $3,000 to be expended by the town clerk to purchase dog licensing software or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends transfer from free cash. We have the town clerk here. Do you have any questions or comments you want to make regarding this?
The only comment really is the software will automate the dog licensing program. We do it all by hand right now, so it will save a lot of time, and everything will be printed, so it'll be a nicer record for us too.
I'll entertain a motion.
Actually, can I ask the town clerk a question about that?
Actually, we can.
Thank you. I'm sorry, thank you for being here, Mr. Pacheco. My question is, dog licensing software, is this relative to fees? Or is like a bill that you would send someone? Or is this documenting which house has a licensed dog in the town of Dayton? Sorry.
So we get partners with Univate, so we'll be able to take fees through the software, but really more of it is we handwrite each license and put it into the computer.
Okay.
So once it's in the computer, when someone comes to buy a dog license, we can just print it right out. So you get time at the counter, it goes from 5 minutes to 30 seconds.
Okay.
And it will also, as far as the letters go too, it automates that process, and we can collect emails and save some stamps and postage. There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah, it sounds like it's streamlining, and so I'm gonna support this. Thank you.
Thanks.
So the public knows, if you're over 70, you're able to get a free license, dog license.
That is true. Mr. Chairman, we didn't have a motion, did we? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that that the Board of Selectmen recommends a transfer from free cash not to exceed $3,000 to be expended by the town clerk to purchase dog licensing software.
Second.
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Selectman Hull? Aye. Selectman Segravas? Aye. And Campuchico votes aye. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate annual transfer from available funds of sum not to exceed $27,350 to be expended by the police department to purchase 22 body-worn cameras and all necessary equipment related to implementation of a body-worn camera policy or take any action relative thereto. Finance Committee has no recommendations. My understanding that we probably will be eligible for a grant, even if this is funded, we're going to also apply for a grant.
Yes.
This is funded by the state.
So yeah, like the lieutenant of the police department has already applied for the grant, and it's our hope that we'll be awarded the grant, so we don't have to fund this at this time.
No, well, I saw some hands first.
Two questions. Contractually,
Yes.
are we under any obligation?
Yes. To impact bargaining, yes. We right before we so included in the ratification of the updated CBA with the police union is a reopener specifically for this. So like if there comes a point like in the life of the new CBA, like where we have funding approved either through a grant or by town meeting for body cameras, we have a reopener there that would allow us to have a conversation and to impact the changes in working conditions for the body cameras.
But may I make a comment about that?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, sorry,
Just about that
no,
direct comment. To be very clear, regardless of whether that specific language had been in the CBA or not,
Yeah.
if they had approached us to impact bargaining,
Yeah.
we would be obligated to sit across the table and negotiate. We would not be obligated to agree to anything. I just wanted to let you know that.
Agreed.
So we don't have an agreement where we
No,
have to.
no.
Correct, no. But the reason why I would be inclined to see how the grant plays out is because if we were to say, people, you should vote for this, and it passes, and then we get the grant, my understanding is that the monies would go back into the general fund, correct? Because we wouldn't use it.
Would it become
It's a
free cash
reimbursement.
next year?
Yeah, we would close out the grant article and it would run free cash.
But would remain unused.
Yes.
Okay.
So I support this, I generally want to see what a policy is, if we ever get to that point, what the policy is. But this also protects the public, but it also protects the police officers.
Correct.
So there's a recording of what exactly happened. So I think it's very important this happened.
So the grant, and obviously there's no guarantee we get the grant, but if we got the grant, would we be able to use it to refund the expenses that we already incurred? If we purchased this before the
I think we're gonna pause purchasing.
Right,
So
we were going
Yes.
to apply for the grant, see if we get the grant. If we get the grant, obviously, this money is free of the cash. But if we don't get the grant, then we'll spend this money to purchase the But I think under the new police law, they're encouraging people to apply for the departments to apply for grants.
Yes.
I think.
Yes, and they made the state, the Commonwealth has made available a substantial amount of funding. So, if you're gonna be a community and have an interest in it, it really made sense, and our PD was on top of it. It really makes sense to try to apply for the funding at the outset and be part of the movement, if you will.
So, the finance committee has no recommendation on this. Are we thinking free cash or raising appropriate?
I was thinking we weren't gonna make a recommendation either. Am I wrong? Was I not following?
So what I had recommended in my spreadsheet was to defer, pending a decision on the grant application. So if got a special the annual town meeting in June, we would know the status, and at that point, we could propose to fund it.
How does the board feel about that?
I feel fine with that. My, I don't want to say concerns, because I also support this and see the merits in it, certainly. My only, I guess, black box of unanswered questions mostly concerns the data part of it, and how that data is maintained, and how it's accessible. But those are questions that, certainly I will ask when we get to possibly having funding for it.
Just let them know.
As I look at the timing and the grant application, we could revisit this issue at the annual town meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of support the finance committee's recommendation,
Yeah, me too.
but no recommendation.
Okay. You want to take a vote on the Article 27, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $26,000 to be expended by the town clerk to purchase 4 new ballot scanners, accessories, technical support, implementation services, or take any action relative thereto. Finance committee recommends transfer from free cash. It's my understanding because we're going from 2 precincts to 3 precincts, we need the next additional scanning machines. Is that correct?
Spot on.
Mr. Gordon. Let's talk about.
I'd like to make a motion that the town, the Board of Selectmen recommended the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum not to exceed $26,000 to be expended by the town clerk to purchase 4 new ballot scanners, accessories, technical support, and implementation services, or to take any action relative thereto.
Wait a second.
Any discussion?
I do actually have a question for the town clerk, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. And I don't want to be approval fanning about it, but my question would be, I'm sure we're not the only town after the census occurred, because it happens every 10 years, that needs to add another precinct in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So my question for you would be, and I'm sure you've had these conversations or put out your feelers, is there any state funding? Meaning, have you contacted our state rep and asked if there's any type of assistance from the Commonwealth for municipalities in this particular situation? And I want to be clear, I'm gonna support this. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm just curious.
I appreciate the question, so that was on my list of questions you asked at the last meeting when I first talked about, your precinct bid.
Oh, I'm a broken record.
So I appreciate it. No, so thank you. So I did contact the Secretary of State's division, election division, and they said they did not make any money available for it. So I did look into it. They're the ones that, work with us for this. They said they didn't make anything.
Okay, I believe you.
Thanks.
Good old unfunded mandates. I have no further questions on this.
Did we already make the motion?
No, I don't believe
I'll
we have.
entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends to transfer from free cash. Oh, I'm sorry, he did? Okay, I'm sorry. The keeper of the record has spoken. Thank you, Mrs.
If there are no further questions or discussion, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Sobran's?
Aye.
And Campuchico votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds a sum of $2,500 to be expended by the town clerk and town treasurer to purchase 2 laptop with docking stations and 1 printer for use in shared counter space at the newly renovated office of the town clerk and town treasurer town hall, or take any action relative there to the finance committee recommended transfer from free cash. This is because, my understanding anyway, this is because we have a new counter system, and it's been shared by the town clerk and the treasurer, and they need to have computers set up right there. And we also need a printer when something needs to be printed, and we can send it to the printer. So this is as a result of you're familiar with the renovations in the town hall.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Okay, sorry. My question on this would be, and I fully support this, I know why it's needed. My question would be, we have a network administration budget. So if this is stuff that deals with technology, getting computers that will be on the network, is this just for transparency? I guess I'm just asking why this is a special article.
So with the updates that we're, with the upgrades that we're making, to our fiber connections, working with our IT consultant, and also through Zoom and other projects that we have ongoing, we thought it would be best really to propose this as a separate article rather than I don't want to say draining our operational account, but not interfering with the operational things that we already have planned through the remainder of the fiscal year.
Because it was unanticipated.
Exactly,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends to transfer from free cash a sum of $2,500 for the purposes listed in Article 28 as presented this evening. You're welcome, Karen.
Second. Any discussion? If not, Selectman Hull, please vote.
Aye.
Selectman Sobran's?
Aye.
And Campuchico votes aye. Article 29, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16G and a half, to allow the Dayton Hope Regional School District to establish a stabilization fund for the future capital costs or take any other action relative to Selectman Hull.
The make state the comment that I'm about to make is based on 33 years of educational experience, master's degree in educational leadership, and 5 years as a member of the school committee in preparing 5 budgets for the Dayton Hope Regional School District. The idea this time, the school district having more scrutiny over our tax dollars after 2 years of state mandated oversight of their budget. The current multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the school district for the town of Hope has been very concerned about extending more fiscal control to the school district at this time. I cannot support this.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I asked the finance committee, if we remember, at our meeting, even though there are no particular dollars attached to this article, so I was not expecting a recommendation, certainly. But I did ask them if they had any opinions, because they are much more well-versed in financial matters than certainly I am. And the response that we got was basically a hypothetical response that was sort of based on whether or not there were particular questions that would be answered in a way that would be satisfactory to members of the finance committee. And my impression, and I may be wrong, and I'm certainly not speaking for any members of the finance committee, was that those questions had not been answered, and they also did not have an opportunity to ask them. And I'm only speaking for myself here. I am not prepared, nor do I feel comfortable not being able to ask the questions, and certainly not being able tonight anyway to get answers. I am not prepared to make any type of a recommendation on this. I don't want to say that I'm against it or for it. I have concerns, certainly, and I'm saying that publicly. Most of my concerns are based on an inability to ask my questions and to obtain my answers. So I'm not comfortable supporting this evening, Mr. Chairman.
I don't support it, you know, along with like all of years more experience in this field than I do, but I do have the same experience that he has, so I'm not. I agree. So do we want to vote that we're not recommending it, or we just want to leave it for the residents make their own call? Because I believe Dr. Azar will speak on this at the
Correct. So I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm inclined not to support it, but I would like to give the administration or someone an opportunity to answer the questions everyone has before I take an official vote. But right now, if you guys want to take a vote, I will vote no, because I do not have the answers to very important questions concerning how this money would be used, how this money would be maintained, who maintains this money. So it would not be responsible for me to support it at this time.
we don't have to make a recommendation on this, and hopefully we'll have those questions answered tonight at the special time meeting. We can individually vote whatever way you want to vote.
I'm fine with
At this
that.
point, from what I know about it, I'm not supporting.
I just don't want us to vote, because we obviously will all vote no tonight. And then if there is administration present at the FinCom meeting and we get satisfactory, I'm talking about a perfect world, then we would have to change our vote. So for me, it's just better not to make that decision. And then let's see what happens at the finance committee meeting.
Article 30, see if the town will vote to amend the town value general bylaws by adding the following article. There's no middle, I guess. No. Designated,
Yeah, it would be inserted into the bylaw.
designated safety zone. The town of Dayton, having adopted chapter 90, section 18B of the Massachusetts general law, is hereby established a designated safety zone bylaw with the interest of improving public safety in said zone within the town. The operation of a motor vehicle in the designated safety zone as established by chapter 90, section 18B of the Massachusetts general law at a speed exceeding the speed limit established in said law shall be a violation of section 17 of chapter 90 of said general law. Designated safety zone, from Pleasant Street area, safety zone, Pleasant Street, Water Street, Hot Street to County Street, Muddy Cove Lane, Cobbs Lane, Old Somerset Avenue to County Street, and Main Street, from Water Street to County Street as displayed in figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, and figure 4. As we know, I'm not sure, I don't believe Selectmen Post on the board, but we had concerned residents on Pleasant Street that wanted us to reduce the speed limit on Pleasant Street. I believe we took a vote to reduce the speed to 20 miles per hour, but apparently we need this bylaw in order for us to do that. I do to enforce it, and I do have some concerns about the 20 miles per hour speed limit. Pleasant Street residents appeared to have been supportive of it. I think there were a couple residents that spoke against it, but most of the residents that we spoke to
That night,
were in favor. Selectman Hull?
I can't support this. Fortunately, the reason being, if we couldn't enforce 40, with no physical barriers going to be put in place, how are we going to enforce 20? By putting up a sign does not change people's behavior. As a result, I can't see changing it, creating the confusion and all the problems that are going to come about. Trying, or dealing with the complaints that are going to come. I just don't see there being a change in human behavior because we changed the sign.
Or maybe we would work on 40 miles per hour enforcement and work on that.
Well, it's part of Pleasant Street, right? If I remember correctly, it's 30 miles per hour, and it changes to 40 miles depending on which direction they want to drive. So I agree that without enforcement, you can put whatever speed limit you want in. I know that the enforcement of speed in town has increased. And we've had conversations with the chief of police, and we'll continue to have conversations with the chief of police to make sure that it's being enforced. They have done, as some of you may know, they have done some studies in some of the streets in town, and they've stopped people for speeding, and come to find out many of those that were caught speeding were residents of that street. So that's kind of the problem. Hopefully people don't drive past, but I tend to agree with you. I don't want it to be 20 miles per hour on Pleasant Street. That's my concern. So,
No problem with that. Let's take a vote.
we need a motion.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Mr. Chairman. I motion that the Board of Selectmen vote not to recommend Article 30 as presented this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? Not, call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Zarakis?
Aye.
And Campuchico is also.
Mr. Chairman, that can be funded out of free cash. Just kidding. That was a joke.
Don't have jokes. Everybody is a joke here now. I work alone.
Article 31, the city of town will vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Section 139, Section 140, to amend the town of Dayton's total license fees as follows. Female, $15, spade female, $5, fees for male, $15, male, Newton males, $5. License issued after April 1st, will be a late, or any other action. License issued after April 1st, the additional $10 late fee for each dog, or take any other action relative thereto. So, what is the difference in the fees then? So apparently we're increasing fees, but what is it right now?
So there's some changes, so right now there's 2 fees, there's a $5 fee after April 1st, and then I think it's after June 1st, it goes to 15. So it's confusing for residents to have the 2 fees. And the other feedback I got was $15 is too much. You have 3 dogs, that really adds up. So it went down to 1 fee, it takes the difference of the 2, so it's only $10. Beforehand, we were charging the same amount for a spayed and neutered, I believe it was a male, an intact male versus a neutered male. But, so by law, they have to be different price, it has to be more money if you don't neuter your dog. So, with that, the spirit of the law, we did increase the intact females and males to 15, and that really does keep with the spirit of the law, to pay a little more for not fixing your animal.
Yeah, that's the question. 2 questions. 1, is this an increase in the late fee? And then my second question is, I'm sure it's easy, and I'm just speaking from what I think. I'm certainly never worked in the clerk's office, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I assume it would be easier for your office to identify individuals who had licensed their dog in the previous year, but neglected to do it in a timely manner the next year. I guess my question for you, and maybe you can't answer it tonight and that's fine. I think the real issue in town is being able to identify households that have dogs that are not licensing them. And so my question for you is, how do we find those households? Or those, excuse me, let me say this differently, it's not a witch hunt. How do we make sure those dogs get licensed?
I love that question. That's my favorite subject, dog licensing.
Nerding out.
Yeah. So when you get your dog vaccinated for rabies, the vet by law has to send it to the town clerk's office. So my first job as town clerk was we audited our records, we reached out to all the vets and basically told them that rule, a lot of them don't even know.
Yep.
Send those records to us. So as soon as your dog gets that vaccination, we should be getting a letter, and then we get the letter, the resident will get a letter.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. I really, really appreciate that.
We sent out over 800 letters this year. Most of them were people who we got a rabies vaccine for and had.
That is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So glad you saw that as a priority. I know it sounds like a small thing. It's not about the money. Well, I guess a little bit it is, but mostly it's about making sure that we know who has dogs in case something happens. So I really just want to thank you. I can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you. And I agree about the money. I hope to never raise the price once this is fixed. So it should be affordable to license your dog.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's getting late, but grandpa joke is gonna be, that's your pet peeve?
It wasn't mine.
So I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen recommends Article 31 as presented this evening.
Have a second. Second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Love. Selectman Sprafus.
Aye.
And Campuchico goes on aye.
Good morning.
Article 32, see if the town will vote to amend the town planning and zoning bylaw section 6 definition of kennel residential by deleting it in its entirety and replacing it with the following. Kennel residential, a pack or collection of 4 or more dogs that are owned or kept under single ownership for personal use and enjoyment may be allowed in the residential or business district, subject to the approval of the Board of Health and Animal Control Officer. This also includes a personal kennel as defined in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 136A. Note, this section does not apply to properties with 3 dogs or less. Said residential kennels approved by the Board of Health and Animal Control Officer shall be inspected annually. The Board of Health shall promulgate the regulations governing said process for approving and inspecting a residential kennel as so defined in accordance with the applicable Massachusetts general laws. Annex A, use regulation schedule of the town by the zoning bylaw shall be amended to reflect these changes. So my understanding that the changes in this is that they don't have to go get a special permit or go before the board, zoning board of appeals, but the zoning board of appeals to get a kennel license.
Exactly.
Which would have cost residents a fee of $750.
Right, and that's really all that they're doing is they're removing that requirement for the permitting, and it makes the process easier.
My concern about the change, though, I totally agree that people should be assessed $750. How do the abutters know that this someone's applying for a kennel license?
So the Board of Health, that was a part of the meeting, to some extent. The Board of Health is working on regulations, and in those regulations, they spell out the abutters. So it's, they do specify how far to go out in their regulations. I'm not sure if they voted on it yet, probably not if it's going to the special meeting, but there would be a clear process for the Board of Health.
Any questions?
I guess this is a general question, and I literally ask this every time this article comes to a town meeting. Is this the last time we're gonna see this, and is it correct this time? And I don't even mean that in like a just, but I'm a little exhausted, this is like the 6th, okay, not the 6th, the 4th time.
So everybody knows it's not the town administration, this is.
Correct, yeah, no, yeah.
Yes.
No, it's the first one,
This is the second one. So because we initially, when I got up here,
We didn't vote on it, right?
no, we deferred it.
Yes.
Correct. Because it wasn't correct.
Yes.
So I really, it's
Yeah, no,
about, it's about public confidence.
Yes.
And I feel a little bit like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, and I'm
Yes.
sure other people do too. So I just want us to move past this. We had a
So-
very serious issue, so I just want to make
Yes.
sure it's correct. That's all.
So as the town clerk mentioned, we had a pretty extensive conversation with the ACO, with the chief of police, with the board of health, with the health agent, the town clerk and I, and we really, as we mentioned in the spring, like one of the things that was one of the first things I tried to tackle, and I really wasn't actually comfortable with where we ended up. I am comfortable here. It does address the ZBA and special permit filing. While at the same time making sure we, as a town, hold the reins in the approval process, because we want any residential kennel with more than 3 dogs to come forward and get actually licensed with the town. So this encourages, it's not any type of deterrent, but a process with the Board of Health where the regulations actually can be promulgated that are practical, and that deals with all the abutters issues and everything else. We feel that this is really the best path forward. I will mention the planning board at their next meeting on October 20th. We'll be holding, and I believe it's at the middle school that evening, we'll be holding a hearing on this article as well, because it does involve a change, a proposed change to the zoning bylaw. So I do want to make that clear as well.
Thank you. And I just want, that was not, it wasn't a criticism that anyone.
No, I appreciate that.
You know, my only concern is that every time this comes back, people are wondering, and then we need it to pass. So I just want to make sure people understand why it's needed and that have faith that it's correct.
Agreed.
That's all. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I didn't say any motions.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to recommend Article 32 as presented this evening.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, take a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws to add the following article. I'm required to read the whole article, I assume.
So I don't believe, I've never heard of the requirement, so like you could interpret it as presented in the warrant, and we do have the warrant here. So I think just, discussing the article as presented in the warrant, I think is perfectly fine, Ken, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So this is, see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws to add the following article. It's Municipal Commission on Disability. We formed about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, the Commission on Disability. I'm a liaison person for the Commission on Disability. And the state requires us to have bylaws approved by town residents. So that's why it's coming before the residents. And it's 3 pages, 3.5 pages. So as presented to, that was in our packet, but we all seen, the public had access to that packet as well as we're now presenting it to Zoom. So is there any questions about, the Finance Committee did have some questions that we did make, Town Administrator Mullen has made some adjustments to this bylaw. And with the assistance of this group.
Hey, good job.
So do you have a question?
I do actually. I cannot find it here, and maybe I'm overlooking it. One of the concerns from Finance Committee that I shared and that I think we agreed to make, everybody was in agreement, was regarding the acceptance and management of gifts. And so did we just change that? I couldn't find it anywhere. Isn't it there?
It was there, we struck it. So the Commission on Disability would not be able to accept gifts. Any gifts that would be accepted would go through the normal process.
Okay. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's standard law.
Correct.
And then we took out the
Treasurer. Yep. And then
that was also worked by the Finance Committee.
And then the 6th, I believe there was some original proposed requirement of posting, providing notification of meetings with agendas 12 days in advance.
Yes, oh, yeah.
And we changed that to be in accordance with the open meeting law.
And it's my understanding that the Commission on Disabilities meeting this Friday, of all times to meet this Friday, to approve these, or against these changes. So we're hoping that it's a 15-minute, another hour meeting on Friday night. So, good luck.
I noticed the attendance requirement, is that standard for all the committees, boards?
It's not. The actual, I don't want to say the offender, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the actual general bylaw says you have to attend 60%.
60%.
Correct.
And what is this?
But there's no like enforced, there's no automatic mechanism to handle that.
No, but usually it's the chairman of that committee or commission of that board who has seen that someone's not attending the meeting, will bring it up to that commission. And then it comes back to us and we would, without, if there's not a good explanation why that person hasn't attended, and it's been in the past.
I think once or twice.
Once or twice, and one person was able to let the board know that there might have been some health issues.
Is it wise to allow them to, where everybody else is 60, for them to go miss 3 meetings in a year?
My thought is they can,
That's.
not that they can do whatever they want.
Okay,
but,
no,
you know,
that's.
they have to like they have to deal with that internally, so if they're on board, then my thought is why not?
And obviously, if someone is not attending, it's gonna come back before us anyway, and we can decide whether that commission was appropriate to recommend that person no longer be on the commission. Any further discussion about
It's coming up now and not a year.
the committee was just long about a year ago, and I know that we worked on it all last winter, and the springtime. It did not come up at the annual town meeting. You're correct about that, but it is coming up.
Well, you only had like 6 to 8 months by that time.
Yeah.
So you would have had to start right away. So it just wasn't possible.
And there were other things that were going on, all those. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to recommend Article 33 with the changes made by our administrative team as presented this evening.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, call for a vote. Selectman Barnes, and the vote.
Just wanted to thank you both for making those changes.
Article 34. To see if the town will vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 38H, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement with GHTJA 03 LLC of Dover, Delaware, for the principal place of business at 250 New Burton Road, number 201, Dover, Delaware, area code 19, zip code 19904, or its assigns for a period of 20 years until approved said agreement, under which DHTJA 03 LLC with the principal place of business at 850 New Burton Road, number 201, Dover, Delaware, or its assigned, I'm not reading that yet, or its assigned will pay the town, is it repeated in this? Or its assigned will pay the town a sum of money per year relative to 19.6 plus or minus acres parcel land located at 893 Brook Street, Dyton, Mass 16, parcel 20, related to the construction and operation of the photovoltaic solar facility with an expected nameplate capacity of approximately 3.4 megawatts. Alternating current AC. Second tax agreement on file in the town's clerk office will take any action relative to. This is who I was about the pilot agreement. I've seen it, I think you've seen it. Mr. Hull has seen the pilot agreement. It's favorable to the town that we get a lot more upfront money versus later in the 20 years. So she worked out a pretty good deal.
May I ask the question?
Yes, you may.
Is
that the question?
I don't know. I wish. And I don't want to say anything I probably shouldn't. So I guess my question is for our town administrator. Our office had received an email with a status update about this project. And I guess my question for you is, does that impact the way the board should vote on this recommendation this evening?
That's a good question. My recommendation, and I recall that the board, in preparation for the annual town meeting as well, would be that, that the board hold off on making a recommendation in one way or another. Like on articles, 34 and 35.
Okay.
And then as we get closer, especially to the informational meeting, and then the meeting, the board of selectmen meeting on the 27th, we might have actually updated information relative to the status of both projects that have been outlined in Article 34 and 35. That would be my recommendation at this point.
I have one last question, Mr. Chairman. So obviously Finance Committee did not make a recommendation on this, but there is a financial component, and so I guess my question is, do they plan on making a recommendation?
I don't think this.
No?
I believe they traditionally have.
Okay.
Yes.
Some pilots.
We have to read Article 35, because I was going to recommend tabling.
No, you don't.
I'd like to make a motion that we table Article 34 and 35.
I will second that.
So take no action.
Okay.
I'd like to suggest that the board currently make no recommendation or take no action one way or another on both articles at this time.
I was saying that second.
So I'll ask for a new motion. Oh, actually take no action, so we don't.
Yeah.
And let me just read Article 25, Article 35. Apparently we're not going to take any action on this also, but let me read it. To see if the town will vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, to authorize the board of selectmen to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes power agreement for ISM Solar Guidance 3, LLC of Arizona, with a principal place of business at 4,900 Scottsdale Road, Suite 500, Scottsdale, Arizona, or its assigns for a period of 2 years into approve said agreement, under which ICM Solar Guidance 3, LLC of Arizona, with a principal place of business at 4,900 Scottsdale Road, Suite 500, Scottsdale, Arizona, or its assigns will pay the town of the sum of money per year relative to a 58.7 acre parcel of land located at 2754 Elm Street, Diagram 0275, map 23, lot 10, related to the construction and operation of a photovoltaic solar facility with expected nameplate capacity of approximately 2.8 megawatts, alternating current, said tax agreement and file on the town clerk's office or taking action relative thereto. Actually, we're not taking action. Again. Article 36. To see if the town will vote to accept as a town roadway known as Billings Lane and Tommy's Way as described below. Do we know if the planning board has already made a recommendation on this? Are they addressing that on the 20th?
So they have, I believe, my understanding is, I have the notes in my other binder, I just swapped them out, but I would hold on these recommendations as well. I know on at least 2 of the streets, I believe there are public hearings on the 20th as well, so I'd wait on that if possible as well, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact information.
So if it's okay with you, something, we'll take action on this article as well as Article.
Actually, Article 38.
Yeah, let me just read Article 37, to see if the town will vote to accept as the town roadway known as Sunny's Way as described below. And Article 38 is to see if the town will vote to accept as the town roadway known as Dyke Woods Road as described below. So okay. And also as the Dyke Woods Circle too?
Yes, Article 39.
Article 39 is if the town will vote to accept as the town roadway known as Dyke Woods Circle as described below. I don't want to make a decision, but since Dr. Z is not here, we've gotten 4 pages so far.
I'm not surprised.
So we're not taking any action on. I don't know if you read that, Dr. C. I don't mean to make lighter.
No, that's okay.
But we're not taking any action on the roadways because the planning board is going to be addressing these, we believe, on Article 4. Last article. To act upon any other business that lawfully may be introduced at said meeting, you are directed.
Do not recommend.
And you are directed to serve the warrant by posting and testing copies thereof at each of the post offices at the town hall and at the main fire station, all in said value, 14 days at least before the town, time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place.
I have a question. And I don't know if it's possible to do it this time. Why don't we post it at the North Dayton station?
I don't know, but I know that it's not.
Town Hall South, Byron, not, the main station South. I don't see anything in the north.
So I think because it's not, I don't wanna say not always, like it's not permanently staffed like Station One, that I don't think there's someone there that like could let you in to see.
But you know, post on the windows. I mean, in Rainham, they have a public bulletin board. What about doing that, similar to what Rainham has?
Well, we have it at Town Hall, but I guess my question would be, how would someone access it if no one's there to like let them in?
Yeah, it's not like a vestibule that's open.
Correct, that's all I know. Yeah. And I'm not opposed to it, I just, if we're gonna do it, it should be accessible, so do you have any?
So I do think Selectmen Hall makes a really good point, especially to, like have that information out to residents of the village in North Dayton. What I guess I would recommend is I will check in with the fire chief really to see if, even if the North Dayton fire station is not actually identified, if we could do it now. Like after the warrant is approved, and then if we have the ability to do it now for informational purposes, when we get to the annual town meeting, we can include it. It's listed if it works and if it's possible. We can, if we do have the ability to post at the North Dayton Fire Station in the meantime, we could do it anyways, even if it's not
a requirement.
Exactly.
Yes. We can go above and beyond,
Yes.
like we do when we post it on the website.
Okay, on our business, review, discuss, and act, approve, and sign special town.
We have to approve and approve.
No, it's not really anything.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna be, well, I think you're opposed to it.
I am.
I'm in favor of it. I don't think we need to take any action, basically. So I will entertain a motion on sign special town meeting warrants. Approve and sign special town meeting warrants,
Oh, okay.
right?
So we do have to take.
No, we're taking a vote on all the warrants, not just 40, but to place them on the warrant, don't we have to take a warrant?
We
have to
already
sign the warrants?
voted to put the articles on the warrant. I think there were some outstanding items that we did not make recommendations on, so I don't think we should vote on it as a whole.
As a whole, because all the recommendations came individually, so, all you have to do now is actually to sign.
Which
So we'll wait on the
So
recommendation.
Which I will make a motion.
So we don't have to vote to put these warrants because we did
It's
that
already been done.
a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Regardless of the recommendation, I said, we're not talking about that, we just need to sign the warrants. Okay, so
Mr. Chairman.
So what are we reviewing, discussing, acting on?
Well, I'm gonna make a motion if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, for us to sign the warrant.
Second. Any discussion? If not, Selectman Hull, how do you vote? Selectman Zagrafis? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Review, discuss, and act on town clerk's recommended border precinct map.
Thank you for being patient.
Oh, thank you for having me. So in your packets, there should be 3 items. There's a map of the 3 precincts, that's a final map. There should be a block report and a legal description. This morning, there was a slight change to the legal description, which I did provide to the selectman's office, but I just want to pass it out again, just to make sure you guys have the right one. So it's very important that the right one's approved, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I'm here for the second time. All I need is a vote to approve it. Since the last discussion, there's 2 questions. One was funding, which we already talked about, and the second was the current venue, the elementary school, would it work? I talked to the Board of Health, we will make it work as far as COVID regulations, from what I'm told, is other than the mask, there's none as far as distancing and capacity. What will it look like in April, we don't know, of course, but we believe the venue will work. So I'm just looking for a vote to approve then they have to ask, you can have it.
I do have one question, if it's okay. So, I know you're second here. My question for you is, it looks like I'm in the, right, for example, it looks like I'm in the same precinct. Are there any, I would assume there are people who will not be in the same precinct. Will there be some kind of a notification so that people know to check, or,
Yes.
you know, it might be different, they may not know which line to get into when they get, to vote, so.
Yeah, I have to notify them, that's,
Okay.
I have no choice, so once you approve it, this will go to the local election review commission, we'll get a letter of approval, then we'll work on getting a letter out to residents, letting them know of the change.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was in precinct 2, I'm now in precinct 3.
Oh.
Very nice.
No. He's a creature of habit.
I like change.
No, I agree.
I'll entertain a motion.
Do you have any questions, Selectman Hull? No, you're good? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we vote to accept the re-precincting as presented by our town clerk this evening.
So a second. Any discussion? If not, Selectman Hull, how do you vote? Dr. Sokrakis? And Campuchico is an aye.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being patient.
My pleasure, I enjoyed it.
Selectmen's reports and comments. Just for the record, we have 34 minutes left.
So actually, I'm not going to present on this since we are crunched for time. If anyone is interested on the accessibility improvements that we all worked on as part of the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities grant that we submitted last week, please look at the packet. Each project is outlined with visuals, as well as comprehensive descriptions and totals for the requests. So please feel free.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your work on it, and I see that a lot of what you were asking for is regarding our parks. I was with our ADA coordinator, Jonathan Gale, when KMA came around to different parks, and we definitely need changes. And I've heard from residents concerned about some of the limitations of the parks. I'm sure Kevin Smith was very active in this. So I want to thank you for planning this grant your work.
Well, and thank you for working with our ADA coordinator on the first part, which was the KMA ADA 504 self-evaluation and transition plan. So none of this would have been possible if we didn't have that.
Sure, I just want to say that you did a lot more work than what we did. But I think this, went to the whole grant, and it's been lovely. I was going to say Selectman Muller, but you were Selectman.
I'm just not here.
No better.
Thank you, everybody. It was a team, and Mr. Ferry as well, and Mr. Aguilar. That's right. Couldn't do it without everyone.
New business. 10/12/21, we received a letter to whom may concern. This is to notify you that William J. Mendoza is retiring on October 31st, 2021. Sincerely, William J. We'll entertain a motion.
Do you have anything to say, Mr. Ferry? I'm sorry. Do you have a comment?
Just to thank Bill for his service. He was with us since 2008. He's been foreman since 2020. He resigned for personal reasons.
Thank you.
Just you're very fortunate, you have a wonderful crew, you guys do a great job for the town. I'd like you at this time to make a motion to accept with sincere thanks and appreciation, the resignation letter for retirement of William Mendoza.
I'm going to second that.
Second. Any discussion?
I just wanted to echo Mr. Ferry's sentiments. Mr. Mendoza served the town very honorably, and he just did an amazing job. So thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoy every minute of your earned retirement, sir.
And he most recently worked on the stone wall next to the library, the opening, which came out great. So I haven't seen work there, so we appreciate that. It's a hard work from the other part. Did we get a second? We get a second.
No.
Yes. Selectman Hull, how do you vote? Dr. C? And Campuchico is an aye. And while you're still there, Mr. Perry. To whom I make assurances from Superintendent of Schools, Tom Perry, regarding the appointment of new foreman class 1. Please consider Nicholas assistant for a foreman class 1 vacancy. Nicholas is our most senior and qualified applicant, taking over start date of October 18, 2021. Is he able to start while we still have the other foreman, because he's still?
Nope, I think there's a start date.
He's.
October 1st, you're right. Sorry.
The start date is October 18th, and we would have 2 foremen. Am I correct?
So I believe if I could, Mr. Perry has done an analysis of his budget, and I believe we concluded that, it would be able to be done, correct?
My understanding is, with all the 50s account lines, he's enough money there to fund this, yes.
Entertain a motion? Yes, question?
I'll ask it during the time, after second meeting. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint Nicholas Sisson as a foreman class 1 with a start date of October 18th, 2021.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. I have a question. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Yes,
You try, it's okay. My question is.
You have a right to any question you want to ask.
I appreciate that. Is the reason for the overlap like a training?
Yes, we need to get the whole shop settled before snow season begins.
Understood.
We also need to consider filling another position else, there's another vacancy.
Thank you.
That was a good question. I'll call for a vote. Selectman Segravas. Campuchico votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Next item is a recommendation to expand membership of the Development and Industrial Commission. You're on that commission, and I believe you want to expand the number of members from 5 to 7.
Yes, and I just would like to add that we had a discussion on the number. And we felt that, one, we wanted to include someone from the Bristol County Agricultural School, as Mr. Mullen has pointed out, so Dayton can work to maintain its rural character. We would also like to bring someone from the Taunton Area Chamber of Commerce, someone from the outside, to give us just like input from Circuit, but also ideas from other towns that are a member of the chamber. We can learn a great deal from building partnerships with other communities, whether it be Taunton or Berkeley. Is Rainham a part of the chamber as well?
Yes.
But specifically the Taunton area?
Yes,
Okay.
the Taunton area is Taunton, Rainham, Dayton, Berkeley.
Okay.
So just as we'll be reaching out to Circuit, we would like to reach out to the Taunton area. We talked about 9, we talked about 11, we thought it would be too unwieldy, too difficult to communicate, get everybody on the same page.
That's how to get stuff done when they're there. Correct.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to, that the Board of Selectmen accept the recommendation to expand the membership of the Development and Industrial Commission as requested this evening.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico votes aye.
And thank you for everyone's work on this, revitalizing this commission. Very appreciated, and it's very important for the town, so thank you.
It's my understanding that the committee has voted with 3 recommendations for new members of the committee.
That's correct.
So there's a recommendation to appoint Dr. Raphael Elkin to the Development and Industrial Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Segravas? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Appoint Warren Howard as the Bristol Agricultural High School representative member to the Development and Industrial Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not,
I
I'll
just
call
want to add a quick comment. Mr. Mullen was working on an IT grant and at no charge to the town of Dayton. Ms. Howard has already made an impact on the town. providing free consulting work and helping us upgrade our technology in this building.
That's great.
She's gonna be a very positive addition to the
Well,
town.
that was a good idea, see? Good work.
Team.
I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Selectman Segravas. Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Appoint John Geggett as the Town Chamber of Commerce representative members of the Development and Industrial Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Now call for a vote, Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Selectman Segravas.
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye, passes. Rescind the appointment of Delphine Rosanito from the Development and Industrial Commission. This is someone who I believe is competent. And you made a lot of effort to contact him. There's been no response, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen rescind the appointment of Delphine Diosomito from the Development and Industrial Commission,
Is there a second?
effective immediately.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Selectman Segravas.
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye. Appoint Jonathan Lawrence to the Historical Commission. We interviewed him last night. He's really motivated to be part of the Historical Commission. He's a young kid.
You get to
He's been in
say
town 8 years and he wants to learn more about the town of Dayton and its history, and look forward to working with him. I'll entertain a motion.
Before I make that motion, if it's okay, I just wanted to ask, is Jonathan Lawrence related to Edie Lawrence and the Lawrence family of County Street?
Yeah, we did not ask that question, and we didn't think it was appropriate to ask him that question.
Just curious, everybody's related in this.
Yeah, no, I had the same, I was thinking Joe Lawrence,
Okay.
so I was thinking, but I don't think so.
I'm still.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said he moved into town, he said he moved into town 8 years ago, so I
Yeah,
suspect,
okay. Nice.
so I suspect that he's not.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we appoint Mr. Jonathan Lawrence to the Dayton Historical Commission.
I second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Selectman Segravas.
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye.
Full commission.
Okay, it is a full commission, it's one of our
That's amazing.
new commissions. And your commission also, the industrial development. See, I'm talking like, town administrator, again. Development and industrial committee.
I know what you mean.
Appoint Diane Heath as special agent for tobacco enforcement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not,
Yes.
Yes.
Someone had actually asked, I know this is crazy, a resident did reach out and ask me what this position is, and my response to them was, I believe that this individual, I don't want to say enforces the state tobacco regulations and make sure the convenience stores are abiding by the letter of the law and all that?
Yes, it's my understanding that we belong to a consortium called the Western Bristol County Tobacco Prevention Collaborative. And the collaborative, through that grant, funds Mrs. Heath's work. And as a result, the collaborative makes her available to do enforcement work in Dayton. But in order for her to perform that work, we have to authorize her as the agent, special agent.
Taunton has had this for eons. Big Tobacco had a settlement at the federal level. As part of the agreement, they had to provide funds for education and for enforcement officers. That's when more money comes for this grant. The fact that Dayton is involved, it isn't just enforcement, it's also education of the student, mostly focused on students to try to prevent them from smoking. So it's very positive, but it's not just enforcement. It's not Big Brother coming down, not just that.
Thank you. I didn't know that there was also an education component. That's great. Thank you.
I believe we've already made a motion, second. Call for vote, Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Dr. Z. And Campuchico is an aye. Appoint Nathan Conti to the Cable and Television Commission. I believe he's here. He's observing us. So I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
So you still need one more Members that, am I correct on Q? Okay. I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. It's a facilities request for One Connection LLC job fair, and that request is to use this building to have a job fair to hire people. The Dayton residents are encouraged to apply for this position and they're prioritized. But they're asking to be able to use this facility. Every committee, the Board of Health and everybody else has already signed off on it, correct? And it's now up to us to approve and sign the necessary paperwork to approve.
I don't hope so.
Yep.
I don't mean to be nitpicky, and I'm obviously gonna support this tonight. But I would be remiss if I did not mention, and I don't mean to sound a little bit like a curmudgeon on this, but I should not find out from a social media post that there is a job fair happening at a town facility. I did receive a question from a resident about it. So I was a little shocked to see that it was announced before the board had made its recommendation. Again, I'm gonna support it, but if we could just get out in front of these things and just have it done properly. I don't mean to be nitpicky, but
That makes sense.
I think it's valid to say that.
Somebody would have egg on their face if we voted no.
Just that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. C.
Thank you, and with that, I am going to motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the facilities request from One Connection Corporation as presented and prepared this evening.
Second.
Second, I do have a question.
Yes.
Obviously, they have intentions of goal of opening in December. To the best of everyone's knowledge here, regarding the permitting process, everything's going well.
It is, and please give more detailed information. My understanding is that they're in the process of getting on the Board of Selectmen's Board of Health's agenda, because the last hurdle they had is to obtain a retail sales permit, and they are in the process of doing that, right?
Yeah, so the Board of Health is meeting tomorrow night. They're on the agenda for that retail sales permit. We've been working with them to get everything in line, working with the chief of police to have the security plan, all considered and reviewed and all that. One of the things, as I guess the senior members of the board know, in 2018, the Board of Selectmen entered into 2 host community agreements with One Connection. One, I believe, for medical marijuana and one for dispensary and cultivation purposes. There
Adult
is,
use and medical.
yes, I'm sorry, I always get that wrong. There is a transferability. The ownership of the entity that received the HCA in 2018, that organization has since evolved, and based on the transferability language in the HCA, it's expected that actually One Connection will be back in front of the Board of Selectmen, requesting a transfer, in the HCA, which is what the HCA allows for. They'll be here at the next meeting. The applicant, Mr. Fonseca, and his attorney at that point will be able to up the board on where they are, when they're gonna hopefully be opening, what steps at that point they have left. It'll be it'll be a transferability request, but also an opportunity for One Connection to update the board and update the town on where they are. So things are moving along.
This is a long time coming, as you know. It's probably about 3 years, maybe, right? Yeah. It's my understanding they're going to open up in December. I saw that social media.
And I just want, Mr. Chairman, there are people, and we all want to get out of this, because there are people who, and I respect and understand concerns about the cannabis business. Okay? Totally understand that. Okay, cannabis kids, I get it. I was speaking to, and I just want to touch on the upside to a business like this. I was speaking to a colleague that lives in Somerset, and as you know, they had Solar Therapeutics. And initially, Solar Therapeutics had, and I believe they're just recreational, they had projected basically bringing in and giving to the town about $100,000 a year. Last year, they paid to the town over $500,000 based on whatever their sales were. So I just want to let everyone know, totally agree, but this town needs business, and the potential for this One Connection Corporation and the cultivation facilities that will be inhabiting the Spring Street Mill is really limitless. And I'm really grateful that One Connection saw it through and stuck with Dayton. So I just want to thank everyone involved, and thank you for being in touch and working closely with them as well to make sure that this happens.
And it's strictly enforced. I mean, there's so many requirements and security issues and everything else. I've been, for over 50 years, I thought cannabis should be legal. I'm glad that it's legal. I'm glad that it's controlled by the towns and the state regarding this. It's a source of revenue for us. I'm disappointed that it's taken this long to get it, because those that started at the beginning, they made more revenue, which meant more revenue, more revenue for the town. But really, they're very strictly, I mean, you just can't, walk in, you're gonna show an ID, if it's a medical thing, you're gonna have a medical card and all that kind of stuff, so it is very strict. I understand parents' concern, when my daughters were young, I had the same concerns. But it is really well maintained, and I look forward to the opening of this place in Dayton.
I'll be there, and we'll be fighting for that first spot this year. Just kidding.
Yes.
Cannabis Commission, are they active?
Yes.
Yes, the Policy Advisory Board?
Right.
Yes, but we only, like the last time we met, it was because we needed to revise the flow chart to account for.
Yeah, they don't get involved, I think, in recommendations for particular
No.
facilities. But the planning board does an excellent job on this, so they go through everything.
It was more like, there were decisions that needed to be made in the beginning about how many we allow and all that. That's what they were, not making.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So do we already have a motion, a second, to allow them to use this facility?
Yes.
Second. I'll call for a vote, yes. It's been a long, Selectman Survivors, and Campuchico is also in time. Request to place a sign on town property for BP's Crafty Fair. Apparently it's going to be on November 20th, largest venue ever, right in the gymnasium. So they're asking permission to put, so I assume it's going to be like in front of town hall. Do we know the
That's just a question. Yes, that's what they'd like to place it. We thought maybe it could go in front of the library, or somewhere over there too. So they'd like to put it downtown.
What kind of sign?
Just, I believe, a regular lawn sign.
It's like those.
A lawn sign, not a.
Yeah.
like-
No.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
There's one,
they move it in if they bring it up.
You're up there.
yeah, driving through, it's called the Berkeley Common. The Berkeley Common has a loud one, or the town of Berkeley, and, yeah, I just speak to it because I drive by it every morning, but it's like a regular lawn sign.
Okay.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve Bristol Plymouth's request to place signage on town property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Survivors? Campuchico is aye. Next agenda items is chapter 61A, the right of first refusal to Reed Brothers Farm of William Street, map 16, lot 24. If the board remembers, 2 meetings ago, I made a motion to that the town purchase this property. There was no second, so we didn't take a vote. So I assume, they said we assume, but I assume that meant that the person who was interested in this property was able to go forward and purchase the property. Apparently that's not the way we need to vote on refusing to accept, to refuse to purchase this property. So I'll continue my same position on it, but we really need to vote. It's not going to go on the warrant, so I know how it's going to go, but we need a motion and a second to refuse the first right of refuse?
Yes.
Makes sense?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that that we waive the right of first refusal for the property as presented this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, you're right, we're waiving our right to.
We do not want to purchase it.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Sparkus? Aye. And I'm a no. Sorry you had to wait so long.
So I don't see if answer any questions you had.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
You were here to hold us accountable, and I appreciate that.
I was here the last, it's been the last meeting, so.
Do you think I could get an email sent to me so I can get my attorney to waive the right to first refusal?
Okay.
Absolutely.
The least we can do is.
I'll stop up tomorrow and give me my email. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Roderick.
You're welcome, thank you for entertaining me.
Thank you. The next item is the review process for town administrator 6-month evaluation. Should we hold off on this only because we've got less than 10 minutes to go through the rest of them?
I feel like I could make this short. My question is why.
You can make this short?
Yeah, I do. I was confused why this was on here. Are we committed to doing this? I don't have any issues.
Yeah, we have to do a 6-month evaluation, and we have to kind of discuss the process of it. I know how you and I have done in the past. Selectman Hull wasn't a selectman at the time, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page regarding this.
Yes.
So
Do you already have a vehicle in place to evaluate?
we
Yeah,
have
there's a
the,
form.
yes, we have a form. What's happened in the past is the town administrator, Valerie did it before. Town administrator does a self-evaluation.
Right.
We do our own evaluations individually. We don't share it with anybody.
Right.
The town administrator gets to see those, and then we have, as we have a public meeting, and then we kind of know what. We go forward, you present your evaluation, I'll do mine, you'll do yours, and,
That's how we did it when I was on the school committee, the Frank committee.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
okay, so do we need to vote on that, or do we want to also schedule this too? I would prefer that it happen after the annual, the special town meeting.
Yeah, no, that's fine,
I
yeah.
don't want it in 2 weeks, we've had the rush of this meeting now, I don't want to rush through the evaluation, that's okay.
And he's doing a self-evaluation.
He does a
Yeah.
self-evaluation.
So,
Is that November 15th? No, it's November 10th is our next, first meeting, only meeting in November is November 10th, I believe.
yes. So is it possible, based on that timeline, Mr. Chairman, I mean, if I get you my self-evaluation a little later than the Monday, October 18th that I propose, just so I'm not scrambling?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
I do have a question, because I haven't seen the instrument.
The form.
Is
Yeah, we should
it,
get that form.
I will.
is it goal-based evaluation or performance-based evaluation?
So it has different sections with different.
Did we get rid of the
criteria.
goals though? Did we get rid of the goals?
Thought.
Yes,
Yeah.
so performance-based with the ability, after the performance review, to identify goals.
But the scoring to fill this in, now I remember, is not based on that.
It's based on performance, not goals.
Correct. The goals don't count towards anything,
Okay.
but they are there.
Okay, you have an idea as well, we're going to do, why don't we vote on it at our next meeting?
Yeah,
You have an
that's
idea.
fine. Yep.
Correspondence, we got a correspondence from One Connection LLC. Is a medical and recreational cannabis dispensary located in North Dayton. We are slated to open late December. Our management team has extensive experience in the cannabis industry. We believe everyone needs a connection. We are looking for professional, enthusiastic, knowledgeable individuals and like-minded to that works in a fast-paced environment.
Do we have a TIF with them?
We have a
Host community agreement.
no.
They don't get a tax. I don't want to say break, but no, nothing like
Yeah,
that.
no, we have a host agreement with them that they have to pay the town a certain 3%.
Correct, and there's some upfront monies as well.
Right, but there's no promise that they'll hire X amount of people or. Right.
There is in the host community
Yes.
agreement, they said they will make every attempt, I forget the exact, every attempt to hire a technical person if everything is equal. Yes.
Minutes, December review, the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of September 29, 2021, June 28, 2021, July 10th, 2021, September 9th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Selectman Duplantis?
Aye.
Campuchico is an aye. Approval of the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of August 18th, 2021. Any motion?
So moved.
Aye.
Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Duplantis? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Approval of the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of September 15th, 2021.
Did you have any issues? I was wondering why you didn't do those together. No?
I just thought we ought to do a separate, just in case somebody.
Okay. Yep.
The
No,
others
just a
were
quick.
accepted for review, these are,
Sure.
that's what it is.
All right. No worries. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of September 15th, 2021 as presented this evening.
Second.
Aye.
Second. Selectman Hull, how do you vote? Dr. Z? And Campuchico is an aye. Approval of the warrants?
It's right here, my apologies. Okay, warrants. Let me move up a lot more than that.
I miss it.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the following warrants, all dated October 6, 2021, 14A-22 in the amount of $111,689.07, 14B-22 in the amount of $189,519.91, and 14C-22 in the amount of $1,468.70.
Second. Second. Any discussion? If not, how do you vote? Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
Campuchico is an aye.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the following warrants, all dated October 13th, 2021. 15A-22 in the amount of $106,517.94, and 15B-22 in the amount of $542,959.41.
For a second.
Second.
Now call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
Campuchico is an aye. Any public input? No to you guys. No public input. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.